4 minutes until showtime. 3 minutes until showtime. 2 minutes until showtime. 1 minute until showtime. 'Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
With Election Day in less than 2 months, what is on the line is not a simple difference of policies, it is the fate of our nation. Judicial activists at all levels have put roadblocks in the way of justice. The 34-time convicted felon will not see a prison cell before Election Day. MAGA activists at state and local levels are working to disenfranchise voters, and foreign governments are paying conservative bloggers to spread their propaganda. On Liberal Dane Radio, we cut through the lies, unwind the spin, and give facts to counter their fiction. Will you do what needs to be done to make sure our nation isn't taken over by an autocratic despot? Or will you sit back and watch as our nation falls to ruin? The clock is ticking. Act now, before it's too late. Welcome back to Liberal Dan Radio, Talk from the Left. That's right. This is your host, Dan Zimmerman, coming at you from New Orleans, Louisiana. To join the conversation is area code 914-803-4131. That is 914-803-4131. You can also join us in the chat rooms over at liberaldanradio.com, which is the YouTube channel, as well as twitch.tv/liberaldanradio as well. If you're listening live on blogtalkradio.com, we don't monitor that chat room much, and we welcome you to come over to the other two sites. Usually, mostly, the chat room that's mostly filled is the liberaldanradio.com link, but you might be more likely to get your comment seen and not get lost in the shuffle if you do make comments on Twitch. So there is that. But we are trying to get the more subscribers, more followers, more listeners, etc., more people getting in. And the only way to do that is to get the algorithms going, because as I say, Al Gore needs more rhythm, and we need to. So you need to go, if you want to help the show, just watch videos, like, comment, share, etc. It's free, doesn't cost anything. It's also free if you have Amazon Prime to subscribe to the Twitch channel. Again, twitch.tv/liberaldanradio. Otherwise, you can buy bits and membership subscriptions over there. You can become a Liberal Danimal, become part of the crew of Danimals. If you want to join over here on YouTube, little as $2 a month. And more, if you want to support with more, you could support the show one time, Venmo Liberal Dan on Venmo, or you can go to liberaldan.com, click the Buy Me a Cider button, or go to buymeacoffee.com/liberaldanradio as well. You can also go to patreon.com/liberaldan or patreon.liberaldan.com. Either way will get you there, and you can support the show on a monthly basis as well. Shouts out to everyone in the chat so far on YouTube. We got the Mod Squad, Aaron and Jolie. We got TV2 Live. Let's see, CR, Steve from across the pond. We got Michael, Mr. Hunt, in the chat. Dakota Dave, Jeff, from close to Uranus, I think. Missouri, Uranus, Missouri. Jackie, Phil. Phil says, enjoyed Liberal Dan with Hal Sparks last week, and other folks seem to like the combo too. It's always a great time when I get to be on with Hal Sparks. We really we agree on a lot of political stuff, and you know, we have different routes and ways that we I think we approach how we present the news and present our political opinions. But he's one of the smartest political analysts out there, and I absolutely, love his show, love his takes. And the one thing we have in common is we've been right more often than we should, because if we would have been wrong more often, this country would have been a better place, because we predicted a lot of the horrible stuff that took place. So anybody who's a new sparkler coming over to the show, I appreciate you. You're welcome. Bunch of sparklers in the chat as well. I'm a sparkler as well. We definitely need to support all of the left, progressive, liberal podcast shows, streams, etc. that are out there, from Hal, myself, Dude, Boston Brian, whole bunch of people, those 21st century suffragettes as well. Everybody who is out there trying to make a difference, support all of them. Chuck John, got to give Chuck John a shout out too. We need, especially with these last 6 weeks of the campaign, we need all hands on deck, as I say in the show intro. So, hey Dean, what's going on? We got Jackie, I think I said, we got Big Hook, Bethany Arbaugh, Janelle, Mr. Spock, live long and prosper. What else? I think I've hit everybody who's in the chat and who have said hello so far. Again, please remember to smash that like button as we smash MAGA and we smash the MAGA movement, smash Donald Trump's campaign, J.D. Vance, etc. All of us working together, we can do it. Last night, I was doing my Nerdy Dance stream, but pretty much through the entire thing, I was also watching and listening to the Geeks and Nerds for Kamala as well, and that was a great thing. Of course, Hal got to be on that too, which is pretty sweet. And There you go. So I'm sure you could watch the replay if you're a geek or nerd and want to geek out on a bunch of the stuff and a bunch of the guests that they had there. Go watch it. It was a good time. A lot of the times, those types of things, while like there was the men for Kamala Harris that I went to and I donated during that as well. Because I wanted to help get those numbers up, but I kind of stopped watching in the middle because it was just getting very repetitive with the geek stuff. I watched the entire thing because who doesn't love Wonder Woman? Who doesn't love geek culture? Who doesn't love nerds? And so I sat there and watched the whole thing and or listened to the whole thing as I was doing my gaming stream, because what better nerdy way to support the Harris campaign while doing a nerdy live stream whilst also doing that as well. So anyway. Big hook. The voter purges are occurring. Politics Girl and Greg Palast are screaming it loudly. Make sure you register and follow up to make sure your vote counts. Georgia and Iowa are the two main states that we've talked about on this show about how you can challenge your vote. So there's not just voter purges are a problem and they're a problem all over, but there is also the challenging of voters and challenging of voter registrations, which is allowed inside, I think, the precincts or the counties in Iowa, but it's allowed to be done by anybody in Georgia, and it's just a bunch of chicanery that's going on because they can't win elections honestly. They need to do it. So you need to check your voter's registration, check it early, check it often, make sure that you're registered to vote because, again, we need everybody out there, everybody voting, especially in states that matter. Unfortunately, we have states that matter because of the stupid electoral college, but, we have to fight with what we have and not with what we wish we had.
It is what it is.
Thank you, Donald. Anyway, so I think they could make Revenge of the Nerds today or Porky's. Well, I mean, you had Mark Robinson trying to do a Porky scene in his own, I guess, was it high school bathroom or high school showers when he was peeking in on the people showering. And he reminisces on that fondly, but yet, the MAGA conservatives are still making apologies for him and are gonna come out and vote for him regardless of it. I would bet that it's possible that Donald Trump may get a few more votes than Mark Robinson at this point because of all the negative stuff that's coming on. But it's very smart for Vice President Harris to be they put out billboards. They put billboards in the town where Trump is going to be, basically showing how Donald Trump supports Mark Robinson, which is a great page out of the playbook of, hey, this is how bad this person is. It's kind of like what Claire McCaskill used to do in Missouri back when Missouri was a swing state. She would take out ads showing how extremely anti-abortion her opponent was, so therefore to try and get the more extremist Republican in past the closed primary that Missouri had. I don't know if they still have it, but they had it back then. They probably do. And then she would go up against this more extremist conservative Republican, which made it easier for her to win because all the independents and moderates would come in and vote for her or not come out and vote at all, which made it easier for her to get the victory. Unfortunately, Missouri now is a more solidly red state than ever, which is rather unfortunate. And I think a lot of that with Missouri and Ohio and all that stuff has to do with union labor support, white blue-collar workers getting behind Trump because they, for some reason, think that Lucy's going to not lift the football up this time. That's the analogy I've been using. That's the analogy I'm going to keep using. I don't know if it's outdated, but, as a Gen Xer, I'm going to use a Peanuts reference when I can, Thank you, Nick Rich, for gifting a membership for people. That's much appreciated. All states matter, all votes matter. Jolie says Indiana flipped blue and Obama. What I would like I don't think if Louisiana goes blue, I will be shook. I'll be doing a live response. I won't be doing a Nerdy Dan stream on election day. I'll be doing a Liberal Dan radio stream on election day, and I won't be. I'll be shocked if anything from Louisiana over to Alabama, these three states right here, and a bunch of stuff in the Midwest, or the way west Midwest, flips blue. But, and then of course you have the BS about Nebraska, where the ability of Maine to change to winner take all passed. That's when Nebraska decided that the Republicans there were going to say, hey, we want to try and make it so that the Nebraska congressional district that can flip blue and be assigned to the Democrat if they win it. We're going to go to winner take all now because we can't win fairly, so we're going to win that way. Now, granted, I think every state should be winner take all. If you're going to have most of them be winner take all of them should be winner take all. But that's another issue for another day, I suppose. When is the Veep debate scheduled for? That's next Tuesday. So I will probably be doing a Mystery Science Theater 3000 Riff Tracks type reaction video to that debate live as well. I guess maybe before I do my Nerdy Dan stream. Maybe I'll be on here, then I'll hop over. So next week you may very well get an extra episode of Liberal Dan Radio as well as we do the live response. And the way we do the live responses here is because the networks like to crack down and bash streamers who are streaming the debate live. So what we do is we just do it Mystery Science Theater 3000 style or Riff Track style, same thing. We put the little Tom Servo and Crow and Joel up on the screen, and we make comments as the debate's going on, but you watch it on your screen, I watch it on my screen. The audio isn't shared. We won't be on Blog Talk Radio. We'll just be on YouTube, etc. So Phil Stone, November offers some possibilities, especially since Trump always makes things worse for Trump. That is true. And it's one of the reasons why I think Florida may be in play. And while Jolie is correct that it would be great if all states did matter, if all states counted, I think the winnable one, the ones that are more likely to be winnable are the ones that obviously that we should be focusing on, like North Carolina now, maybe even Florida. Who knows? They're starting a ground game in Florida, so to me that's saying that there's internal polling going on in the Harris campaign. Maybe they're polling more young voters, getting into contact with them, because that's one of the things that we were not able to see in the polling and why the Democrats outperformed the polls in the election since 2020. Since Roe v. Wade got overturned, you have a lot of young people, especially young women, who are getting out there and who maybe never have voted before, and as such they're not picked up by the pollsters who only go by the people who are active voters or likely voters or what have you. So if you're newly registered to vote, you're not a likely voter yet, even though the reason you're registering to vote means you're probably likely to vote. But according to pollster knowledge, likely voters means that you're somebody who is a regular voter. So Big Hook, a lone Jew in a white Christian nationalistic state where the 10 Commandments are purely for show. Sad. Exactly. I mean, and that's we have that in Louisiana. Our governor decided to put up we're going to put up the copies of the 10 Commandments in all the classrooms. All the classrooms need to have the 10 Commandments listed. But yet we're going to follow the president who was the most likely to have broken all of them. And you asked me, well, did he violate the thou shalt not murder? Well, his irresponsibility and recklessness during the pandemic sure as hell killed a lot more people than needed to. So that's it is what it is, as Trump says. So anyway, so we've got a show to talk about. We're not gonna, I mean, maybe later we might get a little jocular or whatever, but I don't know. Yesterday was a bad day for justice and liberty and freedom, etc. The justice system in and of itself has just failed us, failed the people. The Supreme Court has failed us, failed the people. We already know about the horrible ruling of Dobbs v. Jackson. We know that terrible ruling. We've discussed that on the show many times. But the Supreme Court of the United States has failed us in justice, and more than just on body autonomy. And look, body autonomy is purposeful. Is a very that attempt to take away body autonomy is purposeful. We need to purposely, aggressively defend it from now on. But there are other things done by the Supreme Court that have also harmed the justice system and the ability of people to get justice, or allowing people to be denied justice when it comes to how things are supposed to work versus how things do work. And a lot of these Supreme Court opinions come from the usual suspects, if you will. On the show, we've talked about Salinas v. Texas. Salinas v. Texas is one of the other ones, the other horrible rulings written by Justice Alito. Alito is the one that authored Dobbs v. Jackson. Salinas v. Texas. Oh, hey, Trucker John's in the chat. Good to see you, Trucker John. Go subscribe to Trucker John's channel. He deserves your support as well. Salinas v. Texas. Basically, you had a Salinas who was brought in for questioning about somebody being murdered or whatever. He was brought into questioning about some crime. I think it was murder, but maybe, I don't know. Brought in for questioning. They're asking him a whole bunch of questions. He's cooperating. He's just answering questions. And then all of a sudden, they ask him another question, and he just goes silent. He does not say a peep after that. They let him go, and then later on they arrest him and they convict him. The argument was made by his attorneys that he was never Mirandized, he was never informed of his right to remain silent, but the prosecution said that used his silence against him in court. They basically hey, Tosho Live, 100, lots of bits, 300 bits. Thank you so much. Appreciate the 300 bits. Thank you so much for that. That's awesome. Big shout out to, was it TOH Show Live? That's great. I appreciate that a whole bunch. We'll get to the stare decisis question in a second. So the prosecution said he got silent and we took his silence as guilt. And his defense attorneys are like, well, no, he has the right to remain silent. That's a constitutionally protected right. And when you're under arrest, when you're detained, you are required to be Mirandized, because the legal theory is that if you as a layperson, you as a regular citizen, may not be aware of the constitutional protections that are afforded to you in our Constitution and Bill of Rights, etc. So therefore, it is the requirement of the law enforcement to tell you when you're detained, when you're under arrest, that you have the right to remain silent, and that failure to keep silent can be used against you in the court of law, because you're assumed to not be a legal scholar. But in this case, he wasn't under arrest, he wasn't detained, he was free to go at any time. Therefore, he was not required to be Mirandized. So the courts basically said, oh, well, because he wasn't required to be Mirandized, he would have to specifically invoke his right to remain silent in order to be silent. And the Supreme Court, under Alito, agreed with that ruling, agreed with that idea, that if you're not under arrest, you're not Mirandized, that if you want to be silent and have that silence not be used against you, you have to speak. What the hell kind of sense does that make if you have to speak to invoke your right to remain silent? Now, a lot of people watch TV and court shows and a lot of people will say, I'd like to invoke my Fifth Amendment right to not incriminate myself. I would like to invoke my right to remain silent. And as such, they no longer have to question you, or they no longer can question you. And at that point, it wouldn't be used against you in court. But because he didn't say anything about it, they just used his silence against him, and the Supreme Court was like, okay, that sounds good. How does that make any sense? So the Supreme Court chipped away at rights. In Hine versus North Carolina, the Supreme Court under, this was, I think this was Justice Thomas as well. I'm not sure. I think it was Justice Thomas. Let me just make sure that's the case. Hine versus North Carolina. Hey, what's going on, Fancy? Good to see you. Let's see who wrote the. Oh, it's Chief Justice Roberts delivered this one. I'm sorry, I got that one wrong. Thomas is the next one. Chief Justice Roberts wrote Hine. They basically, Supreme Court said that a police officer pulled over an individual because he saw a taillight out. So they pulled him over for not having a taillight. Apparently in the state of North Carolina, you can't, that's not illegal. You can only be pulled over if you have both of them out. But the police officer still pulled him over. still searched his car, found cocaine in the car, arrested him, etc. The argument that was made was that it was an illegal search of the vehicle because the stop that was made. Another 100 bits. Thank you so much, TOH Show Live. Let's see. House Sparks love you, and I'm a sparkler, and I'm here because of seeing on House Show. You said my handle correctly the first time. Bravo. Well, there you go. Show Live. I don't even forget how I said it right, but thank you so much again for another 100 bits. I appreciate you, and appreciate the shout out and the love. Thank you so much. Anyway, the defense attorney says this was an illegal search because the police officer did not know the law, and as such, if the police officer knew the law, he would have never stopped the car in the first place, and therefore the car would have never been searched. Again, making it rain. Making it rain in the Twitch channel. Love it. Love seeing it be made rain over there. I should have a making it rain sound when that happens instead of just a. But yeah, or whatchamacallit saying dollar bills, y'all. Anyway, thank you again. I appreciate you. I mean, you can keep doing it if you want. I'm not going to complain, but I do appreciate you. Thank you so much. Let's go ahead and give you a follow as well because you deserve it. You deserve a follow. If you go on to Twitch, if you have a Twitch account, head on over to Twitch. Make sure to follow TO Show Live as well. Anyway, what was I saying? Alyosha with more bits. It's definitely raining bits today. It's raining bits. Hallelujah. Anyway, so the argument made by the defense was that it would not have been a legal stop. It was not a correct stop because there was no violation of the law, and as such, if the police officer would have known the law, the police officer would not have stopped the person, and as such wouldn't have found cocaine in the vehicle. The court said, no, doesn't matter. The police officer is not required to know the law as long as the police officer was acting in good faith. The police officer is more than was justified in doing a search if the police officer felt the search was necessary. So more stripping away of our rights, more stripping away of our liberties, more degradation of the justice system. Bowles versus Russell. This is a Justice Thomas ruling. I've talked about this on the show before. Justice Thomas wrote, or what happened in this case was, you had a defendant, and the defendant and their attorney asked the judge in the case when would be the deadline to file an appeal. So you had X amount of days to do it. The judge told him a specific date. This is the date you have to file the appeal by. Well, guess what? The judge was wrong. The judge was wrong about the date. The date that the judge gave was later than the actual date. But the defendant and the attorney relied on that information in order to make their decision and to plan when to submit the documentation. And so when it was submitted late, they denied the filing because it was late. Justice Thomas wrote that even though a judge told someone that the date was wrong, that the appeal had to be done by the specific date as required by the law, and as such, too bad for the defendant. So you can't even rely on a judge to give you accurate information, and if the judge gives you inaccurate information, it doesn't matter because you are screwed. Again, chipping away at our rights, at our freedoms, at the justice system, at the ability of people to get justice, creating a system where it's easier to throw people in jail, easier to lock people up in prison, easier for people to have their rights taken away from them. And all of these done by conservatives and conservative courts. Alito, conservative. Roberts, conservative. Thomas, conservative. All of them conservatives. All of them making it easier for you to be able to lose your freedom. Why do I bring this up? Why I bring this up? Because the ultimate loss of freedom took place yesterday in Missouri. Marcellus Williams. I was going to talk about this on Monday. I just, the show was going a little too long, so I decided, well, there's not much that Liberal Day and Radio is going to be able to do to stop this execution. The execution went on as planned, and Marcellus Williams is no longer with us. He is dead. And he was convicted of murder in the state for a botched robbery gone wrong. So botched that it wasn't even him that did it. DNA evidence doesn't show that he did it. But yet he was killed by the state. Thank you, Fancy, for the becoming a liberal Danimal. Appreciate you as much as well. Let's see. Big Hook asked, does stare decisis still stand, or is president now dead in the SCOTUS? Pretty much, stare decisis is something these conservative justices give lip service to. They'll mention it in their confirmation hearings, but then they don't abide by it in their rulings. They have just eliminated stare decisis for all intents and purposes. They will do whatever it is they want to do, especially the 5 that are not Roberts. See, Roberts actually believes in stare decisis. Because if you go look at Dobbs, Roberts tried to uphold Roe and just allow a little bit of wiggle room in the time that states can restrict abortions, but Roberts didn't want to overturn Roe. And there was a case, a Texas law that was challenged back before the court went too nuts, and the court basically ruled that the requirement that a abortion doctor have admitting privileges in Texas hospitals, Texas emergency rooms, was deemed to be unconstitutional and a violation of people's rights. So when they overturned that law, and Justice Roberts was on the side that wanted to support the law, but it was not a new case. It was a new case. It was a novel idea that was shot down by the Supreme Court. When it came time to review the Louisiana law that was pretty much a carbon copy of that Texas law that was overturned, Justice Roberts then said, hey, this is stare decisis. Currently, this law is so close to what we saw in Texas, and we overturned that law. We must then overturn this law because there's no real differences between the two, and that law got shut down as well. Hey, Seha, good to see you. So he supports stare decisis. The other conservatives, not so much. They will overturn stare decisis in a heartbeat, especially if it protects their Fuhrer, Donald Trump. So, good to see you, Orvilla B in Twitch as well. Thank you for showing up. Appreciate you. Mr. Spock, seems like BS won on one set of laws that don't change. That should be the case, but that's why you have stare decisis. Now, stare decisis was never concrete 100% because, there are cases that were very bad, like, Dred Scott. The Dred Scott decision was overturned. Plessy versus Ferguson, etc. Those are cases that should have been overturned and, were. So you can't always say stare decisis. There are some times that there were rulings that should be overturned, like Dobbs v. Jackson should be overturned. If we get a Supreme Court that'll do it. I know Roberts isn't a moderate. He's a staunch conservative. Whenever he's given the opportunity to make new law, to make new rulings, he will be on the conservative side 100% of the time. I'm just saying that Roberts will still support stare decisis when he can, because he's the Chief Justice of the court, and he doesn't want his court to be seen as overly political. But when it's time to make a novel ruling, he will absolutely kiss whoever conservative's ass he needs to kiss. In the case of the presidential immunity, Donald Trump in that case, his giant orange ass was definitely smooched on that one. So, all right, back to Marcellus Williams. Marcellus Williams was scheduled for execution in Missouri or Missouri, depending where you're at, September 24th, even though there's no reliable evidence proving that he committed the crime for which he was sentenced to death. The state destroyed or corrupted the evidence that could conclusively prove his innocence, and the available DNA and other forensic crime scene evidence does not match him. There is far too much uncertainty in this case to allow Mr. Williams to be executed, says the Innocence Project, particularly when the victim's family believes life without parole is the appropriate sentence. It is not too late. It was not too late for Governor Mike Parson to ensure that Missouri does not take an innocent man's life. The governor could have exercised his authority and granted clemency and commuted the sentence to life without parole, or at the minimum, stay the execution to allow the resolution of further appeals. With the weight of the new evidence and the unreliability of the witnesses who testified against Mr. Williams, his conviction should have been reevaluated to ensure that justice is truly served. Dedicated professionals from the Innocence Project, Midwest Innocent Project, and Brian Cave, along with attorneys Larry Komp of the Federal Public Defender, Western District of Missouri, and Kent Gibson, made up the team that continued to fight, but unfortunately failed to stop his execution. He was convicted of first-degree murder, robbery, and burglary. He was sentenced to death. It happened on 8/11, or the murder took place on 8/11/1998, but it wasn't by him. He was convicted on 6/15/2001. He didn't plead guilty. It was a death penalty case, and they allowed him to die. The prosecutors in the case said he shouldn't be put to death, that there was problems, and he should not have been put to death. The jurors have been interviewed, said, if we would have seen this evidence, we would not have convicted him of murder. If we would have been allowed to have seen this information, they would have not have convicted him of murder at all. He would have been acquitted of the crime that he was accused of. According to the governor's office of Missouri, today, Governor Mike Parson confirmed that the state of Missouri will carry out the sentence of Marcellus Williams on Tuesday, September 24th, as ordered by the Supreme Court of Missouri. Yes, the Supreme Court of Missouri ordered it to continue. They did not order it to stop. They could have ordered it to stop, but they did not. But him stopping the execution, he was not ordered to do that. He could have stopped it. He could have granted clemency if he so desired. He did not do so. According to this press release, Williams has repeatedly alleged innocence despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, except the fact that the prosecutor in the case now says that that's not true. None of the following entities have been convinced of his innocence. The jury of the peers now say that they would have not convicted him. The Missouri Supreme Court, during the habeas proceedings, the Board of Inquiry, nor the St. Louis County Circuit Court, the state proved that Williams is guilty beyond reasonable doubt due to a litany of factors as listed below. But those factors would have been changed, would have been altered, or whatever. There would have been a different story had everybody had all the information available to them, including the destruction of evidence that could have proven his innocence, and the fact that his DNA was not the DNA found at the scene. This is why I say that the GOP is a death cult, because they are more than happy to have deaths. Well, I listened to a conservative talk show in the morning. Jeff Carrera talked about that when I was on Hal's show on Friday. Jeff Carrera will often bemoan the fact that we spend too much time with appeals when it comes to these death penalty cases, and we should just put them to death. It's like, it's disgusting, it's sick, it's gross that these people that claim to be pro-life are just pro-forced birth. We all know that. They claim to be pro-life, but they are sure and damn well hurry to put people to death. And don't get me wrong, if somebody is absolutely 100% absolutely guilty, I'm not going to bemoan if they get the death penalty. I'm not going to cry about them getting the death penalty. You just need to make sure that you're 100% accurate and 100% right. In this case, they were not. In this case, they were not 100% right. In this case, there was evidence to the contrary. And you should always err on the side of caution when it comes to these cases. Always. But they don't want to, because they would rather see a man die, especially a black man, die at the hands of the state than have to admit that they got it wrong. They probably are operating under the assumption that, well, if we commute this sentence and let this go, what about all the other people? If we admit that we're wrong, this is the conservative line of thought. The conservative line of thought is typically like, we should never admit that we're wrong ever. And the conservatives here are probably thinking, well, if we admit that we're wrong, we might then have been wrong in other things, and we don't want to have to admit that we're wrong ever. We don't want anybody to question our judicial system, because they probably think that by admitting that they were wrong and commuting the sentence, or at least delaying the sentence to allow more fact-finding to take place, that they're somehow going to cast doubt on how good the judicial system is. When in reality, it's the opposite. If they would have done that, people would have had more faith in the judicial system, because they would have then been allowed, the judicial system would be saying, hey, if we catch something that we got wrong, we're willing to make it right. Period. But they don't understand that. It's like, a lot of the times I'll use my Donald Trump COVID thing, and that actually is, again, also part of the death cult. The Republicans and COVID were part of the death cult. If you remember, Jared Kushner was basically saying that they should just keep everything open because the places that are most compact when it comes to population are the cities, and the cities are more likely to be blue. Therefore, you allow it to spread like wildfire in the cities, and therefore more Democrats would die than Republicans. And they didn't care if you died as long as you were a Democrat. That's how cynical and sick and gross this death cult is. But Donald Trump, he downplayed the evidence. When asked about the death toll, he didn't say, we should do our best to stop it. When asked about the death toll, he again said,
it is what it is.
Screw you, Donald. That was his response to all of the deaths that he caused. And his ineptitude, his willingness to put his political career ahead of the lives of other people, downplay the threat publicly whilst telling Woodward that it was much worse than the flu. Him wanting to stop testing because he didn't want people seeing how many cases still existed in the country. His willingness to put his, again, political career over the lives of people just continues to show why this is a death cult. If you remember, back when Donald Trump was talking about, dealing with terrorists during the 2016 campaign, Donald Trump also made a suggestion that we should threaten to not just take out terrorists, but that we should threaten to take out the families of the terrorists as well. Threatening to bomb innocent civilians, children, people who didn't have a choice to be in a family run by a terrorist. Yet, Donald Trump believed that we should target those people as a way to make them less likely to be terrorists. But unfortunately, that just makes them more likely to be terrorists. Mr. Spock, how is your Trump impersonation? My Trump impersonation is really bad. I don't do a very good one. Other people have better ones. Some people have the best Trump impersonation. Mine's just fair to middling. Sorry. JL Chauvin or whatever, he does a spot on. I think Dude also may very well have a very good Trump impression. I used to say before I saw JL Chauvins or whatever, however you pronounce his last name, before I heard his impression, I basically would say, I have a bad impression of Trump, but nobody does a good impression of Trump. Even Trump's impression of Trump is terrible. So, that's what he used to do. That's what he's used to. Go after the family. Remember Stormy's description of being hassled with a kid. Well, that's what MAGA does as well. Exactly. She was terrified. The reason why she shut up for a while was the fact that she didn't want to be, she was confronted in a parking garage. She didn't want her kids harassed. She didn't want herself to be harassed, but, they went after it. The MAGA people didn't just go after her because she was, threatening the political career of their hero and savior, Donald H. Trump. Whisper Mason, your Trump impersonation is close to Mr. Slave. Wait, like Mr. Slave from South Park? Is that what you're saying? But yeah, I don't know. It is what it is. So, but anyway, there's another thing though. I was already planning on making this show today to be about the GOP death cult. And then I was listening to Jeff Carreir's show this morning, and a caller called in who I hadn't heard in a long time, and somebody who had been a frequent person that I used for Words of Redneck Wisdom. And I haven't done Words of Redneck Wisdom in a while, but it is a bit that I like to do, and it's appropriate for this week's topic, especially with what we just talked about with Donald Trump. So, without further ado, this is this week's Words of Redneck Wisdom.
And now, Words of Redneck Wisdom, brought to you by Liberal Dan Radio.
The only way that you're going to stop what's going on in this country with these drug dealers is the death penalty. China's got the death penalty for drug dealers, and I don't care whether or not you shoot them standing there on the corner with a joint in their hand. It doesn't make any difference anymore because we're not willing to do what we need to do. It's the same way with Mexico. Here we are. Now we got Mexico, jobs are going to Mexico. John Deere and General Motors is fixing to eliminate I don't know how many jobs that are going to Mexico. And so we got this coming over the border, fentanyl, and the Biden administration is just as culpable of all the deaths going on as if they were pushing it themselves. In some way, they are. And so look at this from the standpoint of this. Unless you're willing to pull the trigger on Mexico and bomb that northern end into submission and tell these drug dealers, these cartels, we're going to kill your family if you keep on, and we're going to kill you.
And this concludes Words of Redneck Wisdom, brought to you by Liberal Dan Radio. Talk from the left, that's right.
Anyway, that was Words of Redneck Wisdom, brought to you by Liberal Dan Radio. Anyway, but yes, that's the caller, I think, goes by the name of Cowboy. For a while, I think Cowboy, if I remember correctly, was from South Carolina, but I think today was calling in from Alabama. And yeah, he got, I guess, his idea. I don't know if he remembered Donald Trump's idea from 2016, but he sure as hell brought it up, the similar idea that we should be bombing, I guess, carpet bombing the northern part of Mexico and threatening to not just take out drug dealers, but to take out drug dealers and to take out their families, their wives, and their kids as well. Threaten to kill their families because of the drug issue. Now, this is why we need, like, Vice President Harris to be our next president and not Donald Trump, because Donald Trump gives these people ideas like, taking out the wives and kids of these bad people, and these people who listen to him will be like, well, that sounds like a good idea. And no, it's not a good idea at all. It's terrible. It's horrible. It's deplorable. Hillary Clinton was right. About at least half of Donald Trump's supporters are what you would call deplorables, and they need to get in the basket to be a basket of deplorables. So, Kelly Anderson, yes, that is a real person. No, it is not Ficus. Even though somebody suggested it might have been Ficus. I have been doing this bit, I think, well before I started listening. I started actually listening now. I've been doing Words of Redneck Wisdom for a pretty long time at this point. And his callers call in from all over the country, and a lot of them talk like Ficus, though. They sure do talk like Ficus. I mean, that's what makes Ficus so funny. He is a representation of truth. The best jokes and the best humor have a big steaming pile of truth underneath them. We'll get to that. Alyosha in a second is mentioning something, breaking news on something in New York. We'll get to that in a second. But, but even then, he's like, he wants to bring up the death penalty for drug dealers, and he says that first. And if you are causing death and destruction by dealing, especially if, like, you're lacing your drugs with fentanyl and spreading them across, inner cities or whatever, and risking people's lives through their addictions, I have no problem with labeling that murder. Like, that's fine, but that doesn't mean you shoot the person sitting on the corner with a joint in their hand, as Mr. Cowboy said you should do. It's these people will argue one thing, and then about being supportive of life, but then they'll have no problem shooting you if they don't agree with you, because they're not really, again, pro-life. And as we've said, hypocrisy is a conservative prerequisite. So that is a huge problem. But again, Donald Trump set the example, and his followers just go goose step right behind him. That's why I brought up on Monday my issue with Donald Trump preemptively blaming the Jews for his upcoming loss. Because, because I'm Jewish. And I would love to be able to say that I was partially responsible for Trump losing. But him riling up his base and getting them mad at Jewish people, scapegoating his problems on the Jews, I mean, that's straight out the Hitler playbook. And it's going to cause more attacks against people who are Jewish, and it'll cause more death and destruction, more hate, more violence against people who he deems the enemy. So, there you go. This is one of many reasons. I mean, they will come up with any reasons, like the whole Blue Lives Matter crowd, just trying to justify police murdering of black people. George Floyd, how George Floyd got treated by the cop and how got murdered by the cop, and then how everybody, rallied who was Blue Lives Matter folks rallied behind the cop, despite the fact that what the cop was doing was terrible. Like, and every time you have a black person murdered by a cop, the same old people will come out saying the same old stuff. They'll try and say, oh, well, this person was a criminal. He was a lifelong criminal, or this, that, and the other, trying to bring up stuff in the person's past that the police officer who killed the person likely did not know before taking his action. So therefore, it's an irrelevant comment on what's going on. So, blue. But anyway, we were informed on the chat by Ali Osher, according to Axios and other things, other news sites that have confirmed it. New York City Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted on federal charges per multiple reports Wednesday. Why it matters, it wasn't immediately clear what criminal charges. Thank you for the subscription for 6 months at Tier 1. Look at that. 6 months at Tier. Thank you so much. That is awesome. Appreciate you so much. Eric Adams wasn't immediately clear what criminal charges the former New York PD captain faces, and the indictment remained sealed on Wednesday night. But the New York Times notes Adams will be the first New York City mayor to face criminal charges while serving in office. So currently sitting mayor Eric Adams is now indicted under federal charges. Now, WCHA might have more information on this. Who knows? Local 1, the 110th mayor of New York City, Eric L. Adams, has been indicted according to New York Times. It's currently unclear what the charges are, blah, blah, blah. I always knew that if I stood my ground for New Yorkers, I would be a target. Target I became, says Adams in a statement. If I'm charged, I'm innocent, and I will fight this with every ounce of my strength and spirit. Adams is not the first official in New York City to be investigated by the FBI. Earlier in September, Commissioner Edward Cabin stepped down after federal agents searched his home. 3 other high-ranking members of Adams' administration announced their resignation this month. Departures include New York City Schools Chancellor David Banks, former City Hall Chief Counsel Lisa Zornberg, and former City Health Commissioner Dr. Ashwi Vasan. The FBI recently seized the phones of both Banks and Cabin. Earlier on Wednesday, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez urged Adams to resign as federal investigations into members of his administration continue. Adams maintained he did nothing wrong. Federal authorities first seized the mayor's electronic devices in November 2023. Not a good sign. Over the summer, federal prosecutors subpoenaed Adams, his campaign arm in City Hall, requesting information about the mayor's schedule, overseas travel, and potential connections to the Turkish government. Adams spent 22 years in New York City's police department before going into politics, first as a state senator, then as a Brooklyn borough president, largely a ceremonial position. He was then elected mayor in 2021, defeating a diverse field of Democrats in the primary, then easily beating Curtis Sliwa, a Republican from the Guardian Angels. Why is that going on? Stop it. We don't need to hear this. Stop. There you go. Thank you. Stories breaking. We'll continue to update with new information. So, yeah. So, and this is the difference between Republicans and Democrats. Republicans are accused of crimes, and they circle the wagons and protect each other. Donald Trump is accused of how many felonies? Convicted of how many felonies? and all of the conservatives are like, well, this is a witch hunt. You know, this is horrible. This is a travesty of justice. We will not dare question our Führer Donald Trump in his criminal activities. We will stand by him. Stand by your felon or something. But when Democrats are charged, we go after our own. Sometimes when accusations are made against Democrats, we go after our own with, and maybe we shouldn't. Al Franken maybe perhaps being an example of somebody that got dogpiled on, and maybe he shouldn't have been dogpiled on. But, we have no problem with demanding our own resign, with, if there was a scandal, if there was, you had Anthony Weiner, who, sent unsolicited pictures of his member, he said member, unsolicited pictures of his member to people, and Democrats were like, go away. And rightly so. But Matt Gaetz is accused of showing naked pictures of other people, young women, who knows if they're of age or not. But even if they were of age, they probably didn't consent to having their naked pictures shown on the floor of Congress. The Republicans circle the wagons and protect him. Even if they don't want to be near him on the House floor, they have no problem backing his campaigns and supporting him politically. He didn't claim Bob Menendez. Yeah, Bob Menendez is somebody else who the Democrats are like, you need, they're not circling, they're not trying to defend Bob Menendez. We're letting the justice actually play out. And this is the FBI under the Biden administration going after a Democratic mayor. Don't tell me we have a rigged system of justice against politicians in this country when that only target Republicans. No, they don't only target Republicans. They don't only target Trump. The fact that the FBI is going after a Democratic mayor in a huge Democratic city is only proof that our system of justice under Biden, at least the Department of Justice under Biden, is not just looking to be a political arm of retribution against Biden's political enemies. I'm sure Eric Adams wholeheartedly supported Joe Biden for president. I mean, I don't have a link with, statements of him endorsing him, but I'll guarantee that, he was a supporter of Biden, that this isn't about political retribution like Donald Trump has promised to do. This is the Biden administration going after people, and actually it's the Department of Justice, because under Democratic administrations, the Department of Justice has the autonomy to go after who they feel is necessary to go after. Under a Trump Department of Justice, they will only go after people who Trump says they should go after. Which is why there's still a case against Hunter Biden. which is why they're still going after Hunter Biden, despite the fact that his father is president of the damn United States. I guarantee you, during the Trump presidency, if you had federal charges that could have been brought against, Eric Trump, Don Jr., etc., especially Ivanka, guarantee you that Donald Trump would have squashed any investigation or charges being brought against his children. Guarantee you. Even Eric. Because, do you really want to claim Eric? I mean, do you really want to claim Don Jr. too? I mean, talk about drug heads. So, I figured Eric Adams was maybe corrupt or a liar when he lied about living in New York City. Maybe. That's possible. If you lie about where you live, that might very well be a good example of evidence of somebody not being on the up and up. Yeah, Brandon Woods. An old picture came up in opposition research of what's his name? Senator from Montana, whatever. I've already said his name, and now Al Franken. Doing a skit, groping a female military person. He didn't actually, I don't think he even groped the person. I think he just kind of made motions at it, and I think the person was in on it. But because Kristen Gillibrand wanted to make a name for herself, and I'm not a big fan of Kristen Gillibrand at all. I mean, she has problems. She has big problems. Like, I remember back during the presidential campaign when Biden was running and they were still in the primaries, and Gillibrand was talking about how Biden's letter about wanting to have more income or more aid for families so you wouldn't have to have two-income families while raising a kid or something like that. And she was trying to go after him for being sexist. And if you read the actual text of the letter, and I covered this on the show as well, if you read the actual text of the letter to the editor that Joe Biden wrote, it was not gender specific. He was not gender specific as to who should stay home and who should go to work. And if coming from Biden, it wouldn't be gender specific because Joe Biden lost his wife and kid and was left to be a single dad. So he knew what it was like to raise a kid or to be raising kids. Now, of course, then he found Jill and formed a good partnership with Jill, and there you go. But still, she goes after people in a ridiculous way, or has went after people in a ridiculous way, and I'm not a huge fan. Now, granted, if she were to be running for some reason, if she was the candidate and ran against Donald Trump, I would still vote for her over Donald Trump, because regardless of what she did that I disagree with, her as president would be much better than Donald Trump as president. So, willing to overlook even that stupidity when it comes to that. But she's not in that situation. It's Vice President Harris who is running up against Donald Trump, and Vice President Harris, I think, has a much better resume when it comes to that sort of stuff, even though she did question Joe during the campaign as well. But they made up. They became a team. They ran together as president and for president and vice president, and they won. So there you go. And now they get along famously. She wasn't in on it, but she was part of the show, not military, but she was wearing a flak jacket, meaning she could not have been groped. Right, and she wasn't. And there was the pictures clearly show that he didn't actually touch her. Easy Network Jill became his babysitter eventually, then his wife, she may have cheated on her husband with Joe, though her ex never had anything against her or Joe. And possibility, but again, my whole thing on sex and illicit tawdry affairs when it comes to politicians is that politicians, whatever they do in their private lives is their private business. As long as they're not trying to push those beliefs on other people, then I don't care what they do. If there was an affair that went on between Jill and Joe, and that's between Jill and Joe and Jill's ex. If they're all fine with it, cool, that's fine. But You know, when people like David Vitter and other Larry Craig and other sexual hypocrites start trying to push their morality on people using government, but then show them the reason why they're trying to push their morality in government, because they don't have the ability to stop themselves from doing what they think is wrong, so they need the big iron hand of government to prevent them from doing the wrong things. That's when I call BS. That's when I call shenanigans. That's when I call them out. Not for the actual acts themselves, but for the hypocrisy of it all. So Kuntz versus Hawley in Missouri. Kuntz harping about working under Trump will secure the border, protect Second Amendment. I'll still vote for him over Hawley. Well, I mean, Josh Hawley is a miserable piece of crap. So, I mean, I would hope that, especially if you're a listener of Liberal Dan Radio, talk from the left, that's right, Mondays and Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Central, here on liberaldanradio.com or on twitch.tv/liberaldanradio. If you watch this show, you're most likely not somebody who supports Josh frickin' Hawley, so I would expect that. Mr. Spock, cost me dollars to call the states, $420 a month doesn't go far. $420, eh? Is that, I mean, my mind just went to weed. And if you're holding the joints on the street corner, remember, a cowboy thinks you should be shot. Back to the whole story about the death cult. Circling back to that thing. Because, you know, somebody holding a joint on a street corner means they're a drug dealer. Or they're dishing out fentanyl. And again, the biggest craziness that comes out from them is the fact that they complain and bitch and moan and whine about Joe Biden stopping drugs from crossing the border. Like, oh, Joe Biden stopped so many pounds of fentanyl, tons of fentanyl or whatever from crossing the border. Good. Good for the Biden administration. You've stopped people from getting drugs that might kill them. Good for you. It's why I won't believe Donald Trump's numbers and why Donald Trump being, good on the border. Because I don't believe his numbers. Because he lies about numbers. Because he sugarcoats things. So. I still laugh at the Family Guy scene of Stewie running with Hawley. Hilarious. Oh, it's your pension. Okay, nice. Nick Rich, puff puff pass. Mods are so important to the show because humans say and do crazy things, and I very much appreciate Aaron and Jolie for being part of the mod squad. Y'all, they are awesome, and don't get enough. I couldn't possibly give them enough love that they deserve, because they deserve a lot of love. So appreciate you, Jolie and Aaron, for helping out. Tim Farrell holding a joint on a street corner, quick trial. Yeah, Judge Dredd comes like, I am the law. Of course, that's the Stallone Judge Dredd, and not the what's his name? I always forget his name. The one on The Boys and who played McCoy in the new Star Treks and stuff like that. So, Jan Morgan, I smell pot wherever I go these days. I just breathe deeply. I do the same thing. I'll be like, get a good whiff. See, Mr. Spock, yeah, international calls still cost money. If you have to make lots of overseas calls, setting up VoIP number is the best solution. Agreed. That's a good techie way around it. I get a raise to $620 on January 1st, though. Mazel tov. It's always good to get a raise. Maria Ali was just watching Kamala's one-on-one with Stephanie Rule on MSNBC YouTube. I probably will watch the replay of it later on today. Because definitely, Carl Urban. Yes, thank you, Easy E. Carl Urban. But yeah, it's definitely something that I definitely want to watch. How was it? I'm sure it was wonderful. I'm sure Kamala did a great job. Vice President Harris did a wonderful job. And, the Republicans are now less and less able to say that she's not opening herself up to the media, because she is clearly opening herself up to the media. So it just takes a lot to, start a campaign that Donald Trump's been running ever since before he was indicted, because he wanted to make sure that he was running before he was indicted so that he could make it a political argument that he was indicted for political reasons. But Vice President Harris had to switch from running mate to candidate on the drop of a hat, and so therefore there's a lot of stuff that needed to be taken care of, which is why clearly she didn't start off doing a whole bunch of media. But she has talked to a lot of people. And she has talked to a lot of individuals. And she's talking more about her economic plan. She's talked about now how she wants to make sure she's asking the voters to give her a Senate that will overturn the filibuster or nuke the filibuster when it comes to abortion rights, so that they can codify Roe v. Wade into law. I have my doubts as to whether or not this activist Supreme Court would keep that law in place, but it can't be done unless you give her the House and Senate. So that's why we need to make sure to give her the House and Senate when she wins the presidency, so that she could enact the legislation that she needs to enact, that she's running on, that you could put it on her desk and that she'll sign. So there you go. Hi Dan, hi kids. 45 stopped counting crossings in April 2020 and on. Good point, Robin. I mean, again, the reason why Donald Trump stopped counting the crossings because he didn't want people knowing what the numbers were. Again, he sugarcoats things. I don't trust Donald Trump at all when it comes to any of his numbers, because if you stop counting, or if you count more, if you test more, you have more cases. Again, kind of freaking idiot makes the argument that that testing is what causes the cases. No, people acting like a bunch of freaking idiots in the middle of a pandemic are what causes more cases. People going to Sturgis in 2020 causes more cases. People wanting to go shoot pool, hang out at bars, not wear masks, that causes more cases. Not testing. Testing just reveals the cases, Senor Trump. So he's finally stating the facts about Trump's economic losses even before COVID. Manufacturing auto plants, 200,000 plus lost jobs, then bounced over to you. Yep. That's good. And that's good that she's bringing that up, and it's good that she's talking about it, because people need to know, especially labor. Labor unions need to understand this. And I think most labor unions understand this, but there are a lot of blue-collar workers who for some reason will be backing Trump because they somehow, again, believe that Lucy's going to leave the football down and not pick the football up. They somehow believe that Donald Trump is somehow going to be good for labor, even though he's never been labor. He's never done that type of job. He's never done a blue-collar job in his life. He wouldn't know how. There's no way that he could understand the life or the livelihood of somebody who works in a blue-collar job. And all you need to do to know that Donald Trump is anti-labor, anti-union, is listen to the bit from the Elon Musk Donald Trump conversation that they had over on the Twitter, which basically had Donald Trump praising Elon Musk for acting in union-busting ways. You can't be pro-union and pro-labor and vote Donald Trump. It doesn't make any sense. Not one bit. But yet some people will, because they are gullible. They are part of the group that Donald Trump said after the Nevada primary in 2016, part of the poorly educated. The only group of people that Donald Trump has ever said that he loved that I recall. I love the poorly educated. He didn't say he loved the highly educated. He didn't say he loved all the other people, but he sure as hell said that he loved the poorly educated. And every day of the week, you have your maggots, your MAGA idiots, those people out there doing their damned bestest, doing their damn best to prove to Donald Trump that they're still worthy of that love. Sure. Trump droning on about food prices. Anybody remember Bush and store scanner? Politico 2024 elections. Trump rips FBI. Suggests apparent assassination attempts may have been tied to Iran. The former president made the accusation with evidence. Well, I mean, no, I don't know if these assassination attempts are linked to Iran. Maybe they were, but but that's the thing. Donald Trump is also poorly educated. Donald Trump is not a very smart man. Donald Trump is like the guy from The Waterboy, where he's like, I am not what you would call a very smart man. God did not grant Donald Trump what you would call a working brain. Hey, 778, I see you calling in. I'll get to you in a second. Oh, there you go, Big Hook. It's you, Big Hook. I'll get to you in a second. But the FBI and the White House, and they have literally said that Iran it wants to assassinate Trump, supposedly. Donald Trump and his tiny little brain says, oh, well, if Iran is trying to kill me and these other two people are trying to kill me, that must mean these two people were backed by Iran. Correlation is not causation, dummy. Anyway, let's get to Big Hook on the phone. Big Hook, what's going on? Good to hear from you.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, where do you think it's going? Like, do you think there's going to be an October surprise still in the wings?
From Donald or from the Democrats or what?
I'm wondering from the Democrats, because at this point, boy, the evidence stacked up against Trump is pretty high, and not outside of maybe an N-word on tape or some other thing. I don't know how much more they can hurt him.
Oh, I'm sure it's there. I mean,
curious.
I'm wondering if there are more videos. Did you see the Rachel Maddow production thing, the From Russia with Lev?
Oh, yeah, that was the first thing. I was like, I don't know how much proof you have to put in front of their face, and they're like, the Republicans are like dogs. You got to rub their nose in the shit that's there and make sure that they actually taste it to verify that it's real. It's just ridiculous,
I was literally shocked. Like, not much shocks me in politics. I mean, there's some things that I'm like, oh my God, that's ridiculous, that's terrible. But I was actually shocked that the person that Lev was there with in that meeting where they discussed the Ukrainian ambassador, I was surprised that somebody got in of that recording device and was able to record that conversation with Donald Trump basically telling them to take her out. I'm surprised somebody didn't take that literally.
Yeah, that was Igor Fruman. He was in there because he was fanboying out when Lev said it, and then got him on tape. And same thing. I mean, you see the idiots there. I mean, Rudy Giuliani was like, "Oh yeah, maybe you'll do 7 or 8 years in jail, but it'll be worth it." And it's like, and he's got the postcard or whatever it was that was slipped under his jail cell, and actually slipped it to his lawyer to make sure that they had the proof. I mean,
right.
I got to say one thing. He really had all the evidence and everything else. And like I said, this is what gets me, is that we keep presenting the facts to them, and they won't acknowledge it. And that's what's so frustrating, because at some point in time, you have to work within reality. It's just absolutely puzzling as to what is it going to take. I'm more than a little bit distressed, especially with all the cheating and everything else. I mean, we're down to the point where it's like, it's not how you vote, it's who counts the votes. I mean, that's pretty distressing.
Well, yeah, but then, you had Donald Trump back in the day. I've shared something on my personal Facebook page where Donald Trump said, you need to get if we'll have a fair election if we just delete the votes. We won't need an election, just get rid of the votes and it'll be all be good. Like, Donald Trump, they don't want votes counted. They'll say it's who counts the votes, but in reality, they don't even want votes counted. Donald Trump was yelling, "Stop counting, stop counting." I'm sorry, "Stop counting, stop counting." He was bitching and moaning about that on election night last time because he knew that there are certain states where you can't start counting the absentee and mail-in ballots until after the voting time is over, and as such they had to wait, and so you have a whole bunch of those because we're in the middle of a pandemic, and that he knew that a bunch of those votes were going to be coming from left-leaning Democrat type folks who were most likely going to add up to Joe Biden's total. So that's why he wanted votes to stop being counted, not because he probably knew that they weren't actually fraudulent. He's actually admitted recently that he lost the election. He won't say it to his fans, but he said it once, and because he actually let a little bit of truth come out, and his people won't listen to it. The MAGA folks won't listen to it. They'll probably just say we took it out of context, but still, he knew that all the votes that were coming in were not going to be supporting of his campaign. That's why he wanted the votes to stop counting, because if he knew that those votes were going to support him, he would have been like, keep counting, because I want to run the score up. But, you know.
Yeah. It's actually interesting today. Randy Rhodes had a interesting little video segment there, which was, what are the costs of implementing Project 2025? And one of the things that went up there, and I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but apparently your insurance premiums are going to skyrocket.
Thank you, Alyosha, for the 15 bits.
Healthcare isn't unaffordable already,
Right. So who was saying that health insurance premiums are going to skyrocket under Trump if Trump wins? Is that what it was saying?
Well, no, but the thing is that the Project 2025, although they'll say, "Oh, I have nothing to do with it," you know darn well that as soon as he gets into power, if he does, that he's not going to be running the show. He's just basically going to be the face man. Everybody else is going to be behind the scenes implementing all these deep, dark, actions. And it'll basically be, oh, okay, well, now we install all the oligarchs in the positions like Betsy DeVos did over the last one. And what's his name, the other guy? The guy in the Treasury Department, whatever.
Treasury or the mail.
You know the one that did the big mortgage fraud thing.
Oh yeah,
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because there was also the person who was in charge of the mail. What's his face? Who's in charge of the mail? In charge of the post office. He slowed down mail delivery in states with mail-in ballots to stop people from having their ballots be able to get received in time. He tried to steal Georgia for Trump.
To the point,
but it didn't work.
But this is the thing, like when the Democrats get into power, they actually find educated and people who have experience in the departments that they actually are supposed to hold. And every time the Republicans get in, it's like, oh, well, let's appoint somebody who gave us lots of money to get our asses elected and make them head of these departments. And it's like, why on earth would you put unqualified, uneducated people in these departments? I mean,
they don't care. Because Donald Trump loves the poorly educated. Donald Trump loves the poorly educated. Vice President Harris, when she wins, will surround herself with experts in fields, especially in fields that she doesn't know as much about as she could, and she'll take their advice because that's what smart people do. Smart people listen to experts. Donald Trump will surround himself with yes people and sycophants and people who will, do what he wants to do or on the issues that he wants to deal with, and then the issues that he doesn't want to deal with, he'll just let them do whatever, which is why Project 2025 will be implemented under a Trump presidency, because he will bring in the people that wrote it, and then they'll implement it, and he'll just be like, yeah, whatever, it doesn't affect me, I don't care.
Yeah, like I said, he'll just be the front man. He won't. He'll just be the guy that, does whatever while everybody else is pulling all the levers and transferring all the money back to the oligarchs. So... But, and that's a testament to what it is. Every time the Democrats are in power, all of a sudden government seems to operate pretty good. But then as soon as the Republicans get into power, everything all falls to shit. The country goes back into a recession. Things just get worse.
Yep.
And then the other thing is what the other cycle, which I think is funny, is that it takes the first 2 years of a Democrat's presidency is to fix and to actually recover from all the damage that the Republican president before him did. Right. And then all of a sudden the benefits start to come forward 2 years after that. So then you start to see the recovery period. And then all of a sudden they put the Republican president in, and they go, oh, but I remember it was good times when Trump was in the presidency. And that was like, that's the carryover of the next 2 years, because those policies are actually starting to gain steam and actually start to work. Yep. And that's the thing. You're stealing credit from the policies of another administration and claiming, oh, well, that's how Republicans are successful. And it's like, no, they aren't. They're not fiscally responsible. They haven't done anything. It's unearned valor,
Yep. Pretty much. It's stolen valor in a different form. Wait, Nick Rich in the chat goes 20 minutes past the hour, and then he has 2 puffs or whatever. So is that like what? I know, some people are like, it's traffic on the 20s or whatever when you do radio shows. So if you're puff passing on 20 minutes after the hour, is that token on the 20s? We're on the 20s, token on the 20s. So anyway, yeah, had to throw that in there. I do have Linda in the chat. I would like Linda in the chat if Linda is still around to expound on the comment that was made, which says, this is very insulting to people trying to make a decision on the 2 candidates we have to pick from. Linda, could you please expand on that point, because I'd like to address it to know what is very what do you find very insulting, Linda, and why do you find it insulting, and how could we make it better? How can we improve Liberal Dan Radio for Linda, right? So, Mr. Spock, bog rips for Benny Loco. Nice. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, what's her name? Alex Wagner was doing a town hall meeting sort of thing, but it was within the plumbers, pipe fitters, and boilermakers union, and she found that the older people seemed to understand the politics as well as were aware. But what was distressing to me was the younger male people were like, yeah, I didn't really follow what the crimes that Trump did, so I'm not really sure. I actually think he's I'm going to vote for the testosterone versus the female.
I would question whether how much testosterone Donald Trump has, first of all, but that might be a whole other thing. But
that's the whole thing. It doesn't make any sense, because the thing is that, he doesn't have any policy. Number 2, he's a really horrible negotiator. Look at any deal that he's ever done.
Right.
Everybody loses. It never comes out to. You can't say that he's did anything outside of being cruel and basically weaponizing the government law enforcement agencies. He didn't really do anything. He was really cruel. He separated children from their parents. He did a whole bunch of those ICE raids in the food processing centers and stuff, but that didn't help anybody.
Right.
And if anything, you don't arrest them. If you arrest them, you're supposed to arrest the employers as well, because they're the ones that are doing it, But
that's what I've been saying for the longest time. I've been saying that for the longest time. If you want us to curb, people coming in and taking our gerbs, you need to go after the employers who are providing the jobs to the people, paying them substandard wages, paying them low wages, paying them illegal wages, and then it'll stop. But you're not going to do that. They're not going to do that because, all of the people who benefit from the cheap labor that comes from migrant workers, from undocumented migrants, are going to pitch a fit, because they want to be able to pay, $3 an hour for somebody to keep, picking vegetables and fruit.
Well, that, and then the other thing is, what these guys actually hire children to do the maintenance and cleaning work in these dangerous facilities, subjecting them to caustic chemicals and all the other stuff, as well as, it's disgusting.
Republicans in Louisiana wanted to ease the ability for people to hire children, like hire children for to do work. They wanted to make it easier for children to work. Like, no, children should be going to school and learning, and maybe like getting summer jobs or whatever, or maybe if they have to, working a small part-time job, junior, senior year, whatever. Especially maybe if they could find a job that's pertaining to their, their field of study. Like my kid goes to school and learn. They have some internships that they partner with, so you can actually, if you're focusing on a field of where you might want to go in college, that they'll actually send you to those. To a company to do work and gain experience, which is good, but not working at McDonald's. They want to make it easier for for children to work slave wages or whatever. So
yeah, but even McDonald's has standards, and that's the thing. I mean, they're not covered under workman's health compensation or anything else. So I mean, they lose a limb or they get burnt or they get injured anywhere, they're ineligible for disability benefits. I mean,
right.
that is just disgusting. That's taking advantage of people in the worst way possible. I mean,
yep. I wanted to go back to one of the things you made. Like one of the things, Trump's terrible deals. One of the things for the benefit of the people who might be new or whatever is the fact that I always talk about Trump's terrible deal on gas. Trump. He saw there was a problem that was going on during the pandemic where the price of oil was cratering, so something had to be done. But his deal was terrible. It negotiated with Russia and OPEC to cut production into 2022, and then with no caveats for demand rising for when we come out of the lockdowns, when we come out of social distancing, when demand started going up. So high demand with artificially low production means skyrocketing gas prices. Donald Trump is flatly responsible for the increase in gasoline that took place in the beginning of the Biden administration. We seem to have lost Big Hook, so I didn't hang up on you, I promise. Hopefully that's not Blog Talk Radio crapping the bed. I see. I saw that you lost that, but. They want to blame Biden, but it was Trump's bad deal making. Republicans like to bring up the fact, I'll bring Big Hook back on, Republicans like to bring up the fact that, Donald Trump moved the embassy, that makes him love Israel. No. It just means that's him sticking a finger in the eyes of the Palestinians over there and Arab nations or whatever, him trying to stick it to them. Meanwhile, he got nothing for it. Like, he should, if you wanted to move the embassy to Jerusalem from Tel Aviv, fine, do that, but get something for it. Get Israel to make some concessions, because there was probably something big to be able to be said about, the United States, the most powerful nation on the planet, has moved their embassy to what we feel is the capital. Great. But in doing so, they should have gotten more for it, and they got nothing for it, except for him just, getting Netanyahu to eternally kiss his butt. Which, again, it's transactional. Again, as people have said, it's transactional for him. We lost Big Hook again. I guess the phone lines are, I guess, crapping the bed on Blog Talk Radio, apparently, unfortunately. So, the embassy move took away a leverage point against Sinwar and Palestine. Yeah, exactly. Why would you give away that ability, that power? Elohim, yeah, what happened to the cocaine that was found in the White House? I don't know. Maybe Don Jr. found it and snorted it. I don't know. Maybe Don Jr. left it. Who knows? Or somebody else in you don't know who it was. There's so many people go through that area that day. It could have been anybody who dropped that coke. But y'all will claim that it was Hunter Biden. He wasn't even there. He wasn't even there. Y'all just want to attack Hunter Biden because that's what you do. When in reality, the whole thing was a setup by Trump. See, Maria Ali, why do maggots not realize that America is not the kind of world dictating by snapping their fingers to stop other countries' wars? America first maggots stance is such idiocy. Yes, it is. Unfortunately, it is. And it doesn't look like Blog Talk Radio is wanting to keep you on, Big Hook. I'm sorry. It's a Blog Talk Radio thing. Don, Trucker John, hello, my dad was a trucker after a different job at Corner Cut Highway. RN was out, whatever, blah, blah, blah. My dad's okay. Well, I'm glad your dad's okay. It might have been Trump's stash. You don't know whose cocaine it was, but the Republicans are like, oh, it must have been Hunter's, even though Hunter wasn't there. Not there at all. Did we ever hear back from Linda? Did I miss anything from Linda about the point that was made about how this is not being good for people who want to make a decision between two candidates? We'll discuss the two candidates and the differences. I mean, I've been doing that for a long time now. First for the Biden candidacy, and now for the Harris candidacy. So, and Tio Show Live, as Hal Sparks says, there is no Hunter Biden laptop. Exactly. It's a thumb drive with information on it. Some information may have been hacked. Some information may have been planted there, but it's a thumb drive. It's not a laptop. So, dear God, not some upper crust drug found in a drawer could have been stashed by anyone. Never mind Dr. Feelgood pushing a pill mill for years. Yes, the pharmacy in the White House during the Trump administration was basically a pill mill. There's documented facts on that, but folks like Adlo don't want to understand that at all. So I think Tim Pool wears a beanie to hide a third eye or maybe an ear growing out of his forehead from Moon Girl. What? I don't know. It wasn't a key bump found in like the White House Cawthorn was talking about. Yeah, well, there's those key parties that Cawthorn, I guess, was invited to, but then never, never went because I guess Madison Cawthorn has some principles. Who knows? Who knows what principles Madison Cawthorn has, where the line is drawn, but, I guess sex parties wasn't one of them. Or maybe Cawthorn was mad because he found out about the sex parties and he was mad that he was never invited. That could be a possibility, too, that I didn't hear anybody talking about. Maybe Hal talked about it. I don't know. I'm just asking questions. Nice. Let's see. Without MAGA T's help, we wouldn't have TFG even running. A crook. Dems fix, Republicans break has been forever, oddly enough. And that's what happens. What shows how dishonest the Dems are, Adlo? It's illegal. It's in the White House. Well, cocaine's illegal all over the country, not just in the White House. Cocaine is an illegal drug to have. And you're blaming Biden because that's his residence now, except his residence is also in Delaware and in Wilmington, and there's maybe one in Rehoboth as well, and the fact that, y'all tried to blame Hunter. They didn't start off blaming Joe Biden. They started off blaming Hunter Biden, even though Hunter Biden wasn't there. It's proved that Hunter Biden wasn't there. It's also illegal to use a cell phone while driving in most places. I don't see a lot of y'all following the law. Well, a lot of conservatives, as the Nimbus Yosh, the host of most of the smooth sounds of the Percy podcast, would say, conservative is hypocrisy is a conservative prerequisite, mind you. And conservatives are very much about laws for thee, but not for me. That's why, when you see they have no problems with these abortion bans. A lot of these folks have no problems with these abortion bans because they make enough money so that they know that if they ever get into a situation where they might want to have an abortion, they can go travel to New York, California, or Colorado, or wherever they want to go to and get it taken care of. There's a huge pro-life Republican who also owned a bunch of car dealerships down here, and his and I think that was my friend calling in, but I think Blog Talk Radio is having phone problems. So if you're trying to call in, I think Blog Talk Radio is having phone problems. So that's an issue. Anyway, what was I saying? I completely forgot because the caller hung up, and I was trying to remind people that it does look like that there's this case here. That must be a bot made out of old 80s video games. I don't know. Those were fun, though. 80s video games were fun. Laws are only for the out group. Exactly. If you're in, again, yeah, abortion, and they don't care. that they're banned in Louisiana from getting an abortion because they'll go get them. The car dealer. I was talking about the car dealer, and he was staunchly pro-life, and his daughter went to a very Catholic, very well-known Catholic high school in the area, and she disappeared for a few months. Why? Apparently she got pregnant, and they sent her off to go have an abortion. Why? And of course the Catholic school looked the other way because I'm sure he donated a crap ton of money. And, you know, the Catholic Church down here is currently filed for bankruptcy because of all of the suits that have been coming around with the molestation charges pertaining to the priests. We had a case today where the judge in this priest's last name was Hecker, if you want to look up the case, in Hecker in New Orleans, Catholic, the Archdiocese of New Orleans, and the priest's name is Hecker, and he's facing trial now for abuse that he did to people when he was younger, and some of the things that he said was just mind-numbingly, oh my god, like, it was the late 60s, early 70s, people were just having fun back then, or so, as an excuse for the molestation of children. What? And the church is trying to fight. There are Catholic organizations within the state of Louisiana because the Louisiana legislature passed a look-back law that reopened up the ability of individuals to go after the Catholic Church and to go after the priests who molested them because they didn't, because they couldn't go after them back then because the church was protected. And now the church is trying to claim that it shouldn't be held responsible financially because they're in bankruptcy proceedings. Because, that's holy, right? So, yes, religious BS. Let's hold on. My thing is being silly. There we go. Nope, that's still being silly. There we go. Easy Network. The church is still good, but it lost its way for sure at times. Not allowing Catholics to join Freemasonry is one of them. I don't know about that, but the issue is that you have the higher ups in the Catholic Church. It's not because the problem is not just the fact that you had priests that were molesting kids. You had priests who were doing that, and then you had the higher-ups who found out about it, and instead of, turning them over to the cops, or having them face, justice or whatever, firing them, no, they just moved them to another parish. So that means that they aided and abetted these horrible people. So the rot is deep in there. I understand that one might be a Catholic and one might firmly believe in the Catholic beliefs, and that's fine, but to do that while supporting financially the Catholic Church that's dealing with all this mess, and the church has a crap ton of wealth that they could use, but just like we talked about with corporations and the problems with corporations and how they get around with paying debts that are owed, they split the church into small little corporation, archdiocese type corporation thing, so you can't go after the grandness of the Catholic Church. You can't go after the whole thing. You have to go after the specific archdiocese. Oh, well, if that one dies, we'll just erect another one in its place. Boom, there you go. Catholic to Electric Boogaloo. Moon Girl, the point of wealth seems to be collecting it, not using it. Exactly. The big fat dragon hoards the gold so you can't get to it. So 1227F 1277F. Women aren't allowed to be Masons either. I mean, I don't know too much about Freemasonry. I know somebody was trying to, get me involved in it, back before, I think, Katrina, in the early 2000s, and I was just like, it's just not my deal. Sorry, bruh. Smog was not the hero, exactly. Well, I mean, these people, worship the Empire. These people don't understand that, the whole thing about, Star Wars, the whole George Lucas story that was trying to be, George Lucas's story that he was trying to tell included a criticism of the Vietnam War and us going into Vietnam, and like these people don't understand it. Like these people watch shows like The Boys. If you've never seen The Boys and you like shows with characters that have big potty mouths, like Carl Urban calling everybody to see you next Tuesday, you know, these people thought Homelander was the hero in The Boys. It's very apparent from the very beginning that Homelander is clearly not the hero. So, see, Phil Stone, did you see Spotlight? My uncle worked for a bishop who was exiled from Boston Cardinal law for not wanting to protect the abusive priests. I haven't seen that, but again, not surprised. Liberal Dan, it is very good people typically. Well, I mean, the person who was trying to get me to be a Mason is a good person. I believe Hal has even said that he's a Mason, right? I mean, Hal's good people. We all know and love Hal, so I'm not going to judge that. I was also in Boy Scouts as well. That's so funny. I just mentioned Hal being a Freemason, and then TO Show Live asked Hal Sparks about Freemasonry. Hal's a member. You need to know. As I said, I already knew. So there you go. Brilliant minds think alike. See, Mr. Spock, I donated some clothing to a church in Laredo, Cuba. He was gay and peed vibes big time. He was looking over the clothes like it was his creepy vibes big time. That is kind of gross. Adlo him. Yeah, real good worshiping Satan. That's real good. I don't believe that the Freemasons worship Satan. Then again, I remember one time I was going to go play Dungeons and Dragons as I think a middle schooler or early high schooler, but a bunch of friends of mine were and my mom happened to mention where she was working at the time, and where she was working was like some Jewish organization that we belonged to, and she was working for, I guess, on the side or whatever. I don't know, but she mentioned that I was going to go play Dungeons and Dragons because I'm a nerd, and I've always been a nerd. And they were like, you let him worship Satan? And my mom was like, you're Jewish. We don't believe in Satan. How can you worship something that we don't believe? And second of all, no, Dungeons and Dragons is just a outlet for creativity. It's not a way to get you into Satan. I've never taken part in any satanic rituals because I had a level 5 thief priest that who I basically made into somebody who was part of an evangelical thieving society or whatever. You use your creativity. That's how you bolster your creativity. Kids and adults use Dungeons and Dragons to do creative things and have creative writing, creative thinking. Lots of thought goes into these Dungeons and Dragons campaign, and they're vilified by people who don't know anything about them. But that's because ignorance is a poison. Ignorance is a poison that is pervasive in this country. Especially hypocritical ignorance to boot. D&D is a Catholic. No, I'm aware, but still, it's because they don't know anything about it. It's just a game. It's not a satanic cult or whatever. But they don't care. Facts don't care about their feelings. Don't care about facts. And what? Blog Talk Radio is definitely having problems because I was trying to play It Is What It Is, and it wouldn't let me play it. So there you go. We all, Blog Talk Radio is definitely having problems at this point. I'm sure you're not even hearing me at this point. Who knows? But I probably won't be able to play the outro when I decide to stop the show. Even Satanists don't worship Satan. Hell, there are people who are in the Church of Satan who know the Bible and are better people than a lot of the evangelicals who are out there who don't know the Bible. So I always think of stonecutters from The Simpsons. Nerd. Also, I roll for initiative. All right, I got a natural 20. What's next? Let's see. Steve, I just flash picture thought. Imagine being on your deathbed, last seconds in your life doesn't flash past, but you see game over your head. Wait, what? Too dark. That sounds like something I might write. I used to take a writing class I still have like credits for the writing class, but the writing class is always like on days where I want to do things. And so I took the writing class or whatever, and I would always write these short stories, and like at the end of them, I'd always have a very dark ending to it. Like I always went dark with it, and I thought that they were good and creative, and people liked the stories that I wrote. But a lot of the times, all these little short stories are ended really darkly. Okay, you may have a master's in world religion. That doesn't mean you're right that Dungeons and Dragons is satanic. Kenneth Copeland scares me more than most atheists. Most preachers, like especially evangelical preachers, scare me than any atheist, because atheists typically aren't the ones trying to push their ideas on you. Meanwhile, you have people who try to claim that they're holy, and then in the middle of big storms, they won't open their church doors to let the poor people in to seek shelter. Joel Osteen. Thank you, Mr. Spock. Adlo, you shouldn't be scared then. Kelly Anderson, yes, the backwards playing of records. Well, you know what happens when you play a country music record backward, right? You get your dog back, you get your wife back, you get your house back. 1277 if got a master's in saying that Adlo got his master's in world religion from Trump University. Very well played. Knight of Templar. Okay. Yeah, TO Show Live. D&D is just a game. My son-in-law would do artwork and make characters for everyone playing, and they play once a week. It was nifty. Evangelicals are religion salespeople, nothing different, selling magic. Exactly. They're selling their faith. And look, if you want to buy it, if that's what you want to buy, cool. If you want to be religious, there are people who are probably out there for whom religion probably saved their life, because there's one of the callers who calls into that Jeff Carrera show, the Ringside Politics show that I sometimes listen to in the mornings. There's somebody who calls in who you would also probably think was Ficus. But he talks about how he had a drug problem. He had a huge drug problem, and the way he was able to get over his drug problem was by thoroughly immersing himself in the church. So he replaced the drug of drugs with the drug of religion, but that drug of religion isn't going to poison his body. It may very well, depending on who he's listening to and what preachers he's listening to, it may very well poison his mind, but it's not poisoning his body. So therefore, he probably did, through faith, through his beliefs, probably did conquer the addiction that he was dealing with, and was able to move past it. Unfortunately, seems to be now addicted to proselytizing and telling other people how terrible they are if they're not following Donald Trump or whatever. I don't know how you can be a Christian and support Donald Trump, but whatever. But it is what it is. I can't play the sound because Blog Talk Radio is broken. Mr. Spock, love is the drug. Love is a wonderful thing. Said something, smile in the pouring rain. Is that the lyric? So I remember when these people tried to cancel Pokemon, I got traded a Mew for a Dragonite with a kid whose dad was a preacher. Nice. There was a Christians Against Pokemon Go group, and I'm fairly certain on Facebook. I'm fairly certain that group was a mocking group, mocking the religious people who try to believe that these pocket monsters are really part of satanic tools or whatever. Adlohim, is it blasphemy if I don't believe in it in the first place? Like, I had a problem with one of the rules at my high school, that you couldn't blaspheme at school. It's part of the rules. And if I ever was like, Jesus Christ, or something like that, and if one of the teachers ever would have tried to come after me and say, oh, that's blasphemy, I'd be like, is it? I'm Jewish. I don't believe in Jesus Christ. I'm just saying a name. I don't believe that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. I don't believe he's a deity. I don't believe he died for my sins. So therefore, how is it blasphemy for me to say a name? I never had the opportunity to make that argument, though. Aaron West, I still believe in Satan Claus. Is that purposeful type? Oh, you mean... I thought that was a purposeful typo and not a real one. Hilarious. Jesus the Santa, going back to South Park. Easy Network, Jeff Curry, so you know that Truman was a master mason in Missouri and a worshipful master in his lodge, I believe. Interesting. Jesus would have to have a sense of humor to allow any of those people into heaven, right? No, it's a magic god. I thought their god was an awesome god. Man, what does the H stand for in Jesus H Christ? Herald. Jesus herald Christ. Like Harry, herald. Because our Father who art in heaven, herald be thy name. Right? That's how it works. Isn't that right? Isn't that right? The Moon Girl, bias for me, bias for you. Why am I reading that like Adam Sandler? Bias for me, bias for you, bias for everybody in the room. If that's what you meant, you did it very well. I always thought it was Horatio. I don't know. I mean, isn't that what the prayer says? Our Father who art in heaven, herald be thy name. Thy kingdom come, whatever. Again, I'm Jewish. I don't know everything there is to know about the Catholic prayers. See, I might not be Hal, but I still bring humor to the show, right? Easy Network, Jesus was not his real name either. The letter J never existed in biblical times. It would likely be Yeshua. Likely. Probably. I mean, especially if you watched Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. We all learned that via that movie. But see, Adlo, I'm not bashing Christians. I see, selective hearing is a problem amongst the MAGA folks. I've said that that religion may very well have done people good things. I literally just said that a few minutes ago. Now the lengths that this person I was talking to has taken it to, has gone a little far. There are plenty of people who are Christians who are very good people, but the reason is partially because they don't use like government, for example, to try and push their religious beliefs on other people. If they want people to accept Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior and repent for their sins, they'll do so on their private time. They'll try and convince them to do that on their private time. They won't make it official things. Like they won't require public schools or charter schools or any school funded by public dollars. They won't force them to post the 10 Commandments on the walls of the classrooms, for example. So... Nick Rich, there's only one Hal Sparks and only one Liberal Dan. I don't know if you'd really want two Liberal Dans. I wouldn't want to have to compete with myself. It's hard enough I have to compete with other people. Like sometimes I'll flop on over to Dude or whatever, and I'll see like a bunch of Danimals over there and be like, y'all didn't come to me first? It's fine. Trucker John, the whole thing about saying Jesus H. Christ is saying... is a saying of using the Lord's name in vain without actually using the Lord's name in vain because Jesus didn't have a middle name. Get it? That's also true, but I like the Herald joke better. Yeah, Bicycle Mike. Right wing are the Nazis. And that's one of the things. Like, you can't be against Nazis and vote for fascism and vote for Trump and vote for the people who say that the people who marched alongside the Nazis at Charlottesville were good people. That circle doesn't get squared that way. Jim Terry, riding with President Trump. I'm sorry to hear that, but thank you for helping the algorithm. Trucker John, it's a workaround. Yes, it's like there are a lot of people in the phone book. You know, you might have Jesus Christ, you have Jesus H Christ, Jesus Q Christ, Jesus P Christ. Jim Terry. Democrats are anarchists. So we don't support government at all? Is that what you're saying? You're trying to say that we're anarchists? That we don't support government? That we want anarchy? Wow. That's a complete 180 from what the usually the argument from conservatives is that Democrats want too much government. Now you're trying to say that we want no government? Mind blown. Of course, conservatives now have to support big government. Why do conservatives now have to support big government? Because they want, in order for Donald Trump to be able to do all the things that he wants to do, be a dictator on day one, use all of this executive power, conservatives have to go from the party of, we don't like executive orders, we don't like governmental power, we want to reduce governmental power, especially federal power, as much as possible, to basically wanting Donald Trump to be a king. You can't do that without supporting big government. So now that the Democrats, liberals, leftist people who are against the Supreme Court ruling that basically gave presidents unlimited power, now that we're against that, I guess now we're anarchists because that's the illogical leap to make. That we don't want the president to have unlimited immunity and unlimited power, that now we want anarchy. What? Makes no sense. Roxanne Armfield, actual Nazis consider themselves good Christians. Yep, that's true. The Nazis thought that they were the good people. They're not, but they thought they were. Evil people always think that they're good. Unless you're Dark Helmet. Because Dark Helmet will tell you that evil will always triumph over good, because good is dumb. So, remember, ETTD. What does that stand for? Maria Lee, I want Merriam-Webster to hand out free dictionaries and thesauruses at MAGA rallies so they can look up the definition of autocrat, dictator, communism, socialism, etc. But cover has Trumpy pick. Yeah, don't hand it out in the fair areas by the food. But conservatives are pushing for the removal of dictionaries and thesauruses and stuff like that from libraries because they mentioned the word sex and to define the word sex, and oh no, can't mention the word sex. What will the kids do? Do you drive on our roads? That's socialism. Yep. If you drive on a road, you didn't build that. Someone else made that happen. So, the argument of close the border sounds more like close the door to the jail cell so we can contain your actions and speech. That's a good point. Fully agree with a good point. Logical is a unified Earth under one global government, equally everyone equally. Number one, do no harm. Simple logic. You're bringing logic into politics? Shocked, I say. Dems have a bipartisan border bill waiting to be brought up for a vote. The Republicans apparently are the ones that don't want a secure border. Yes, that is true, Trucker John. Okay. If you want a secure border, vote for Vice President Harris, because Donald Trump ordered the Republicans in Congress to kill that bill. The Republican senator from Oklahoma that helped write the bill clearly believes that bill was going to do good things for the border. That it would help solve a lot of the problems that y'all have with the border crisis. But Donald Trump would rather not have a solution to a problem because he wants to be able to continue to use the problem to run on. If we were to magically fix the problems on the border tomorrow, like if I could snap my fingers and fix the problem on the border tomorrow, Trump would be mad because he could no longer use it as an issue. He wouldn't be happy that the border issues were solved. He'd be mad that he couldn't use it as an issue, that he couldn't use that form of xenophobia, bigotry, and hatred to rile up his toxic base. I'm sorry, not based. He's not like basting a turkey. They're not basting the cats and the dogs and the pets. Jim Terry, illegal immigration was way down under Trump until Biden began. How do you know? How do you know that, Jim Terry? There's no real way for you to know that. And I'm sorry to everybody else in the chat who has to hear this again, but I'm going to have to repeat this for Jim. Because during COVID, Donald Trump told us that he told Woodward that he lied to us about COVID being a threat. He told Woodward it was a big threat. He told us it wasn't. Donald Trump, again, also told the Tulsa rally, where Herman Cain died, or where he got sick and then later died. Donald Trump told us that he didn't want people to get tested because he wanted to slow down testing because, according to the idiot Donald Trump, if you have more tests, you have more cases. No, tests reveal the cases that are already there. But Donald Trump didn't want us knowing the real numbers because, as he said, he likes to downplay threats. He likes to sugarcoat things. So, if Donald Trump is willing to pay fast and loose with how much of a threat COVID was, if Donald Trump is willing to pay fast and loose with the numbers about how many people were actually infected with the COVID-19 virus, then why would I believe that he would do anything differently when it came to the numbers on the border? As Robin M. said earlier in the chat, Donald Trump, they stopped counting people coming across the border in 2020. But why would I believe the count? Because if Donald Trump has made a history of fudging the numbers to make himself look good, Donald Trump would then logically fudge the numbers on immigration to make him look good. He went after, the Dreamers and people related to the Dreamers. He surely went after those people to try and bump up his numbers of deportations or what have you, even though in reality Obama by La Raza was called the deporter-in-chief because of how many people he deported when he was president. But Donald Trump, probably, it's my opinion, and based off of Donald Trump's fudging of numbers for COVID, that Donald Trump would instruct the border patrol people to not engage people trying to bring drugs across the border, because then he would have to admit that people cross the border with drugs, and he would feel that would make him look bad. And why do I believe that? Because when President Biden stopped a whole crap ton of people from bringing drugs across the border, they caught the people with the drugs crossing the border, and he announced it. The Republicans cried about it. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean the Republicans, wanted the drugs to come across the border? Did they want the drugs to come in and kill the people in the inner cities? Maybe. Did they want the people to, maybe they fund their campaigns with the sales of the drugs, the fentanyl. Who knows? They have a hard enough time raising funds anyway. Maybe they needed the fentanyl funds to help boost their campaigns. Who knows? But one thing I do know is that Donald Trump fudges numbers. Donald Trump sugarcoats things. Donald Trump downplays threats. So therefore, why would I believe any number about the border when it came to Donald Trump and what he did on the border, or a lack of action thereof? Doesn't make any sense to trust Donald Trump's numbers. Why is it a bad? Joe Biden, he caught so many tons of fentanyl coming across the border. Good, I'm glad he caught it. That's less drugs that goes into people's bodies. Good job, President Biden. Trump enforced the Remain in Mexico policy. Why wasn't there a Remain in Canada policy? Why is there not a Remain in Cuba policy? Republicans believe that Cubans are more likely to be conservative, so Republicans aren't going to complain if a Cuban comes across the waters between Cuba and Florida and puts one foot on Florida soil. They'll be more than happy to accept those refugees, those people seeking asylum in our country, but they have a huge problem with people coming in and doing it in America. It was never a crime to cross the border and ask for asylum. That was never a crime. And now they wanted to enforce this BS Remain in Mexico policy partially because we didn't have enough judicial infrastructure, so to speak, to be able to handle the incoming cases of people who wanted to, come here and request asylum. So you needed more judges to hear those cases. But if Donald Trump had more judges to hear those cases, then he would have to admit that more people were requesting asylum, and that would hurt his case because it's always legal to ask for asylum. Simple as that. Nick Rich, don't blame Canada. Well, according to South Park, it isn't a real country anyway. Because it isn't a real country anyway. Sorry. Jim, it is not illegal, again, Jim, it is not illegal to cross the border and ask for asylum. It had never been. It was always legal to ask for asylum. And EZ Network is also correct that much of the people who are here in violation of our immigration and border policies are not people who cross the border illegally, it's people who overstay their visas. But people who overstay their visas are probably people who are working for the corporations, and of course the Republicans don't want to go after corporations for hiring people illegally because then they lose their base. They lose their base of funds at least. Janelle, go to Dude's Jim chat. They would like you over there. So the problem is in Dude's chat, you need to go on TikTok in order to debate, because the debate part comes from TikTok. Because I've seen Dude's chats on TikTok, and he only brings up conservatives and he debates conservatives. The stream goes over and gets streamed to YouTube and gets streamed to the other places, but the actual debate takes place on TikTok. So. See, Brandon Woods, Jim, there's always boats from Cuba and Haiti and islands around Florida. They're coming from Mexico. No, exactly. Best tip for your mushroom brew is to mix with beef gravy. What? Where'd that come from? Everything Trump touches dies. What's his name coined that back in 2016? Tio Show, TikTok, no good, delete. I know Hal hates TikTok. My thing with TikTok is because if you use it as a tool and don't let yourself be bought in or brought into the bias of the algorithms, then it may potentially be a good tool for use. I mean, sometimes my shorts that I post to YouTube come from TikTok, and to me, there's so much anti-Semitism that's been going on TikTok recently that it's one of the reasons that I argue on there is because I think it's important to fight anti-Semitism wherever it is, even if it's on a horrible app such as TikTok. So. If we shut down the border, that would go both ways. No more Americans traveling to Mexico. Well, that's one of the things with Trump. When Trump said that he wanted to stop all Muslims from entering the country, in the 2016 campaign pledge that he made, because that's what he pledged as a candidate, he wanted to ban all Muslims from entering the country. Banning all Muslims from entering the country would include banning anybody who was an American citizen or a legal American resident who happened to be a Muslim. They would be banned from coming back into this country, according to Trump's plan. Because he was scapegoating an entire religion to blame our problems on. Who did that before in the past, I wonder? Sorry. Something in my throat. Something's causing a furor in my throat. Sorry. Mr. Spock again, bong rips for Benny Loco. It's not a token on the 20s. We haven't gotten to 1020 yet. It's not token on the 20s. Yeah, first name Adolf, yes. Cheers, Mr. Spock, you blew my cover. Puff, puff, pass, Benny. We used to mix our mushrooms into coffee. It tasted like mud with coffee. I'm talking magic mushrooms. Well, as long as you're not mixing your coffee with something that's mushroom-shaped. Oh, that should probably be on Liberal Dan After Dark. Bicycle Mike, yes, we do need immigration. And again, to all these people that want to shut down the border, or should we disassemble the Statue of Liberty too? Bring us, you're tired, you're poor, you're hungry. That goes out the window now. We don't want them anymore, I guess. I mean, there are people who, when they say make America great again, they probably just mean make America white again. There are plenty of people who call into these conservative radio shows who don't want to, who want this country to be more white. because that's what they want. They're xenophobic, bigoted, racist, etc. So, because they support Donald Trump, and supporting Donald Trump is a racist and bigoted and xenophobic act, because Donald Trump campaigns on xenophobia and bigotry. His whole Haitian eating the dogs, eating the cats thing was just about that. And it threatened, and he doesn't care how many people are harmed. He doesn't care how many people, if people die because of his political rhetoric, he doesn't care. Because, to get back to the topic of the show, the GOP MAGA party is a death cult. And they support death whenever it suits their means. Be it having somebody who's innocent get executed in Missouri, if it means letting a pregnant person die because the pregnancy is toxic and a threat to the person's life, if it means shooting somebody on the corner for a joint, as this week's Words of Redneck Wisdom covered. So they don't care. But conservatives have no problem with death. You had Greg Abbott in Texas violating the Constitution by putting out berms wrapped with razor wire so that people would get harmed by the razor wire in the middle of the river. So much for so-called compassionate conservatism. If conservatives had their way, they would let people just stand on the river and just with their rifles armed and shoot everybody who comes across. And I'm sure the people in the chat who support Donald Trump will be like, that's a good idea. We should support that. We should send that over to Donald Trump because that sounds like it's a great idea. That'll be part of Project 20. That'll be part of Agenda 47, which is this Project 2025. So, yes, Easy E Network. I have mentioned that on the show that Jews. It's not even that Jews allow abortion to save the life of the patient. Under Jewish law, you're required to get an abortion. There's no choice. You are required to save your own life if the pregnancy is threatening to you. So if you were Kate Cox and you had a situation where your fetus was in the process of miscarrying and there was amniotic fluid leaking into your body and you needed to have it dealt with, Jewish law would require you to protect yourself. Because, if Adlo remembers or knows Hebrew, he should understand, again, the concept under Judaism is that the threatening pregnancy is similar to a rodef, which is the Hebrew word for a pursuer. And in Judaism, you're always allowed to take out the pursuer. If somebody is threatening your life, you're always allowed to protect yourself from whatever or whoever is threatening your life. Be it somebody coming at you with a gun, be it somebody trying to assault you, be it a pregnancy that's threatening your life. You're always allowed to and required to protect your own life and to protect the lives of others. So, hey, Teresa. Good to see you, Teresa. I did start playing my music. Good. Morelli, why isn't Ronald Reagan Jr. doing more speaking up publicly against conservatives and Reagan administration versus... Ronald, the myth of what conservatives think Ronald Reagan was versus what Ronald Reagan is are two different things. Ronald Reagan would be called a rhino today because Ronald Reagan gave asylum to 12 million people who were undocumented migrants. He gave them asylum. He gave them, he waived, what's the other word I'm looking for? You know what I mean. Amnesty is what they gave them. Amnesty. Ronald Reagan gave him amnesty. Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush both, when they were debating this policy in front of a bunch of people, were like, while we need to, secure our border, we need to do so in a way that's kind, that does not dehumanize the people who are just trying to cross into this country to make a better life for themselves. While I don't miss Reagan or George H.W. Bush, I wish we had those type of conservatives again, instead of the ones we have now, who blindly support Donald Trump, who invade the Capitol, who attack the police. So-called Blue Lives Matter folks were very silent over Trump supporters attacking police officers at the U.S. Capitol. because hypocrisy is a conservative prerequisite. And Aaron West, yes, Trump only protects himself. The only thing that Trump ever does is if is it going to benefit Trump, then he'll do it. If it's not going to benefit Trump, then he doesn't care, or he won't do it. Razor wires in river, Jeff says. I've done some effed up things in river, but mainly during chicken fighting. I guess not supposed to have face backwards. Yes, Greg Abbott put razor wire in the river so that people crossing the river would get stuck on it and then maybe die. Or at least injured. Because again, they don't care about people's lives when those people are not benefiting them at all. It's damn unfortunate that we have a large portion of this country that is willing to support that type of thing. But again, that's why I say the GOP MAGA party is a death cult. Because it is. That's what it has become to. They don't have a problem with putting razor wire in water. They don't have a problem now. They don't have a problem with forcing people to risk death for pregnancy. They don't have a problem with executing innocent people like they just did in Missouri. It's a death cult, plain and simple. And if you vote for Donald Trump, you're voting to continue the death cult. If you actually support the sanctity of human life, you'll support Democrats. And you'll say, well, what about abortion? What about abortion? The ideal amount of abortions that would take place would be 0. Because in the leftist, progressive, liberal minds that we have, such a world would exist only when every pregnancy was a wanted one and every pregnancy was a safe one. If we could make sure that every pregnancy was safe and that every pregnancy was wanted, then nobody would have abortions. Because the only people that would be getting pregnant are the people who want to be pregnant. And then if those desired pregnancies all were gestated and delivered to term for whatever medical advancements that we could have to enable that to happen, then guess what? You'd have no need for abortions. Simple as that. Universal, comprehensive, free to everybody contraception for men and women. Develop the birth control pill for men. Develop, there's a shot that they've come up with that can also work, that you put it and it kind of blocks up the vas deferens or whatever to get the. My kid's next to me, so I don't want to go too much in detail. He doesn't have school tomorrow. But anyway, you know the drift. It's an injection to stop impregnatation, and it's very easily reversible, apparently. So get a pill for men to be able to stop them from impregnating people when they don't want to. You cut down abortion significantly if you did that. But hey, it's more about control for these people than it is anything else. And they have no problem with people dying for their own causes, to help further their own causes. Oh, Jim. Gas and grocery prices were way down when he was president. You know why gas prices were low, Jim? Because we were in a pandemic and demand was low. Do you know supply and demand? When your demand for a good drops, the price drops. When the demand for a good rises, the price rises. And as we said in the show before, and I keep saying it again, Donald Trump negotiated with OPEC and Russia in April of 2020 to last into April of 2022 at least, a deal that would have Russia and OPEC artificially reduce the amount of oil that was produced. You can search up on Google or whatever search engine you want to do, Donald Trump, OPEC, Russia, Fox Business. And you will get the article that talks about how Donald Trump helped negotiate this deal to help reduce the output from Russia and OPEC, to help the price of oil from cratering and help stop the U.S. oil industry from being destroyed. And because something needed to be done. But Trump's plan didn't include any sort of caveat for coming out of the pandemic, for demand rising. So when demand rose with artificially reduced supply and production, guess what happened? Prices went through the roof. Skyrocketing gas prices was Donald Trump's fault. And I've said in the show before, I said it again. Donald Trump probably had polling data that showed him losing in 2020. So therefore he negotiated this deal to last well into Biden's term so that he could blame Biden for the high price of gas when it was him who caused the high price of gas. And then when gasoline prices go up, and Donald Trump also did nothing to help the supply chains that were disrupted because of the lack of demand, and therefore you needed to ship less stuff, so you would need to restart the supply chains to be able to get them going. With increased shipping prices come from increased oil prices and from janked up shipping lanes and supply chains and production that wasn't ramped up to deal with coming out of that Donald Trump set up. It's no surprise that the price of goods went up, especially when the cost to ship those goods went up. But you know what happened? Under President Biden, inflation rose the least amongst the industrialized countries. So if you wanted higher inflation, higher inflation was other countries. Joe Biden had lower inflation than everyone else. Yeah, inflation sucks. Yeah, inflation harmed people. But you're unwilling to see that Donald Trump was responsible for a good chunk of it. A hedge enemy. The economy pre-pandemic was garbage too. Also, that is also true. And as someone else brought up, we were already losing manufacturing jobs. And remember when Donald Trump promised he would bring steel back into the country, and all the steel workers were like, "Yay, yay, Donald Trump, yay for bringing us steel, and we'll have our jobs back. We'll be able to work, and then the steel companies will make more money, and we'll make more money too," because conservatives are Charlie Brown and Donald Trump is Lucy, and the corporations are Lucy, and they fooled the unions into believing that they somehow would benefit from all this increased steel, and all of a sudden it turned out you had all these interviews going on with people in the steel industry who were upset at Donald Trump because he promised them a bill of goods and he didn't deliver, because all Donald Trump cared about was getting the actual production done. He didn't care about paying the workers doing said production. Gas prices were low before COVID, but gas prices were low when Obama left office. Yes, that's true. Global shipping was halted. Yes. Halting a lesbian. Dan, are you asking Jim to look at the whole picture? They don't do that. I know. I'm silly. I'm silly for thinking that people might actually go look up a source that I cite and then, change their worldview because they've been I've given them facts that they might not have been made aware of before. And here's the thing. The only other person that I've heard talk about that whole horrible deal that Trump made with OPEC and Russia is Dude. Dude is the only other one to talk about this. So I'll give him credit on that, because I've never heard anybody else talk about that. Maybe I missed it on Hal, and I wouldn't be surprised if Hal talked about it, but because I don't get to watch all of Hal's shows, because I do work during the day. I try and watch as much as possible because I love Hal. He's great, but Dude is the only other one to talk about this. My criticism of the Democratic Party and the Democrats themselves would be like, why aren't they talking about this? Why aren't they cramming those facts whenever anybody talks about low gas prices? I would love to see, and that's their argument for Donald Trump. Oh, it's so terrible under Donald Trump when we had low gas prices. Because it was a freaking pandemic that Trump mishandled. And there was a really good video that I saw, and happened to be on TikTok, where somebody was basically laying out the points as to why he felt that this election may even be a bigger landslide than people are thinking in favor of Vice President Harris. Why? Simply because of the fact that a lot of the people who died from COVID were old. And a lot of those old people who died were Republicans, especially when after the vaccines came out, like 5 out of 6 deaths were in red areas. So Donald Trump managed to perhaps kill off a bunch of his voting base because the GOP relies on old white voters. So Jeff Curry, NPR radio today, talking about spices that are hard to get. Lady said, if they're so valuable, why is it so scarce? Scarcity is a thing there. Yeah, people don't understand. It's like I was having a discussion with somebody about the whole Trump thing, and Trump telling Woodward that, Bob Woodward, that COVID was much worse than he's letting people know. He admitted to that to Woodward, and then the conservative I was having the debate with was like, who's Bob Woodward? And I'm like, how are you debating politics and you don't know who Bob Woodward is? I don't expect everybody to know who Bob Woodward is, but if you're debating politics, you should know who Bob Woodward is. Come on. I was also, if you haven't seen this in the news, this is also funny. There's a game called Cards Against Humanity. The Cards Against Humanity game is like a terrible game for awful people. So you basic rules of the game, if you haven't played before, there's a pile of black cards and a pile of white cards. Everybody gets dealt a hand of 10 white cards. Somebody who is the card czar will put down a black card and read it, and then you play fill in the blanks. And you take the cards in your hand and you try and fill in the blanks the best way that you think the judge is going to pick your card. My best example of this play was of a play in this card game while I'm looking this up is there was blank kid tested mother approved. So you would have everybody would see that black card that says blank kid tested mother approved, and you put the card down face down, and then the judge or the card czar decides which card is the best card played. I slammed my card down and I was like, this is the winner. This is the winning card right here. Because the card I played was an Oedipus complex, kid tested, mother approved. And it was great. And it won. So there you go. That's an example of that. But Cards Against Humanity, a while ago, had an expansion. And part of the expansion was that they were going to use the money to help pay for land along the border to make it more difficult for Trump to build the wall. Well, this card game company bought this land, and now they've filed a lawsuit against SpaceX and in turn Elon Musk. Because SpaceX has been using the land in Cameron County, Texas, that Cards Against Humanity purchased. They purchased it, vacant lot, to mess with Donald Trump's plans for a wall in 2017. The property is on the U.S.-Mexico border. Now their neighbors, Elon Musk and SpaceX, who have been there since 2014, have parked construction equipment on their property. In the lawsuit, where photos can be seen, the company clearly states none of the equipment, none of the materials, none of the workers depicted in these pictures are owned or associated with Cards Against Humanity in any way. SpaceX has never asked for permission to use the property, much less for the egregious appropriation of the property for its profit-making purposes. They are asking for $15 million in damages to the property. In a less formal declaration, Cards Against Humanity made a website explaining that Musk tried to give them a lowball offer, less than half of the land's value. They stated, why do we need to do this? Even if Musk un-Fs our land, that doesn't un-F the damage he's done to our reputation. 150,000 people gave us their hard-earned money, and in exchange we vowed to protect this land from racist billionaires and their dumb vanity projects. They also state that if they win the lawsuit, they'll give the original 150,000 people who donated to the original cause up to $100. I'm one of those people. But if Musk doesn't want to fork over the cash, they have something else in mind. P.S. We'll also accept Twitter.com as compensation. Hilarious. So,
So let's see. This is a 21-page thing. Let's flip over to this real quick because this is the lawsuit itself. This is hilarious. To the Honorable Justice Court, Plaintiff Cards Against Humanity LLC CAH files this original petition against defendant Space Exploration Technologies Corporation, and in support would respectfully show the court as follows. Cards Against Humanity intends to conduct discovery under Level 2 of Texas Rule of Civil Procedure 190.4 and affirmatively pleads that this suit is not governed by the expedited actions process in Texas Rule of Civil Procedure 169 because Cards Against Humanity seeks monetary relief greater than $250,000, excluding interest, statutory punitive damages and penalties, and attorney's fees and costs. Pursuant to Rule 194 of Texas Rules of Civil Procedure, because this petition is filed January 1st, 2022, each party is subject to the duty to disclose all information and materials described in Rule 194.2 within 30 days after filing of the first answer of general appearance. Claim for relief. In accordance with Texas Rule of Civil Procedure, Cards Against Humanity seeks monetary relief from defendant in the amount of $15 million, non-monetary relief in the form of permanent injunction, as well as other relief requested in petition. Cards Against Humanity reserves the right to amend the Section 2 of the petition based on information learned during discovery and or as the case progresses. Parties. Plaintiff Cards Against Humanity LLC is a Delaware limited liability country with its principal place of business in Chicago. Further, Cards Against Humanity is a sole member of Whole Holding LLC, a Delaware limited liability company with its principal place of business in Chicago, which is wholly owned by Cards Against Humanity. Defendant SpaceX is a Texas corporation that may be served with process by serving the registered agent. Corporation service companies, DBA, lawyers, incorporating service company, blah, 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 jurisdiction, blah, 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 venue, blah, blah, blah. Factual background. Plaintiff Cards Against Humanity is a developer and owner of an adult party game called Cards Against Humanity, created in 2008, first funded by supporters on Kickstarter in 2010. The game is based on a set of humorous and irreverent answers provided by its players in response to current topics suggested by a series of cards. Cards Against Humanity is truly unique in many ways, but most notably because the company's relationship with its supporters. Yada, 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 yada. Part of Cards Against Humanity method to maintain its supportive relationship and ongoing trust that they will continue to stand up against injustice is the use of humorous pranks or stunts that draw attention to particular issues or people who ignore the rights and problems of regular people for their own personal enrichment and or aggrandizement. Two recurring targets of these stunts have been billionaires Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Cards Against Humanity acquisition, property, and associated expectation of its supporters. As part of Cards Against Humanity's 2017 holiday campaign, while Donald Trump was president, they created a supporter-funded campaign to take a stand against the building of a border wall. This campaign highlighted the legal rights of landowners along the border, even in the face of the Trump administration's tactics to prevent full and fair compensation to these local landowners. This, in its own creative way, was Cards Against Humanity's effort to draw attention to other examples of injustice and hubris on the part of a high-profile billionaire who is more interested in his own aggrandizement than the good of the people. 150,000 people paid $15 towards this effort, which resulted in part in the purchase of a plot of vacant land in Cameron County based on Cards Against Humanity's promise to make it time-consuming and expensive as possible for Trump to build the wall. Cards Against Humanity also retained a law firm to assist in defending their case. Parcel of property, blah, blah, blah. So here's a picture of the property when purchased. It looked like this. Yada, yada, yada. Since purchasing the property, Cards Against Humanity mowed and maintained its natural state, marking the edge with a no trespassing sign, but in the ensuing years, SpaceX acquired many of the vacant lots along the road on which the property is situated, and shortly thereafter began constructing large, modern-looking buildings, exchanging the entire dynamic of the area. Beyond this, the actions taken by SpaceX on the property are far more extreme, notwithstanding the fact that Cards Against Humanity owns the property and SpaceX has no interest therein or any right to use. SpaceX has ignored the rights to the property, essentially displacing Cards Against Humanity, depriving them of any use whatsoever of the property. Below are the photographs of the property taken recently, which accurately depict the property at this date. So this is what the property currently looks like that SpaceX is using. Because conservatives don't like to respect other people's property rights, but they demand that their own property rights be. I mean, why would we expect conservatives to support property rights when they don't even respect body autonomy? So these are all the pictures that were submitted in the petition showing how Elon Musk is using the property illegally. SpaceX and its contractors entered the property and erecting posts to mark property line and proceeded to ignore any distinction upon property ownership. yada, yada, yada. In short, SpaceX has treated the property as its own for at least 6 months without regard for Cards Against Humanity's property rights nor the safety of anyone entering what has become a work site that is presumably governed by OSHA safety requirements. All real property is unique and it's a matter of law, and it's especially true for this pristine Cameron County land otherwise untouched by human development, such as the property, notably Cards Against Humanity acquired the property for the sole purpose of ensuring it would stay that way. Articulated more fully above, the most basic tenet of Cards Against Humanity's business philosophy is to respect and honor its supporters, and in particular to live up to the expectations those supporters have of Cards Against Humanity to address and highlight abusive behavior occasioned by government leaders and wealthy businesses. The holiday campaign resulted in the purchase of a property that was based under Cards Against Humanity undertaking efforts to fight injustice, lies, and racism. That is particularly offensive and egregious acts against the property have been committed by the company run by Elon Musk, yada, yada, yada. By allowing this company to wrongfully operate on Cards Against Humanity property, cast the shadow of possible association between him and Cards Against Humanity. Nothing could be more offensive to Cards Against Humanity, nor more harmful to its reputation with its supporters. To Tim Farrell, is Cards Against Humanity a new sponsor? I prefer Cards Against Hannity. That's funny. No, Cards Against Humanity is not a new sponsor, but I do play the game. Oh, Tio Show Live says, yes, Hal did. So good. So now 3 people I know of who've brought up this topic. Me, Dude, and Hal have all brought this up, and nobody else. Which is why you should be watching me, Dude, and Hal. And anybody else who brings up this important fact when it comes to Donald Trump's failure in making a good deal when he made the terrible deal with Russia and OPEC, because, you know, it's an important part of the argument that conservatives often ignore. Let's see. Causes of action. Trespass. So they trespass, yada, yada, yada. Nuisance. Unjust enrichment. Tortious interference with existing and prospective contracts and business relationships. Damages. Exemplary damages. Attorney's fees. Conditions precedent. Jury demand. We demand trial by jury. I want to see trial by combat. As a Game of Thrones fan, I would instead of trial by jury, let's see trial by combat. Let's see Elon Musk take on, the champion of Cards Against Humanity's choosing. Prayer for relief, yada, 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 yada. And there's the signature of the thing. Exhibit A, Model 11, automated e-certificate services, yada, yada, yada. That's the end of the little suit that was brought up. Jolie, thank you for sharing the links. I saw you share the link to Dude. I saw you share the link to the 21st Century Suffragettes. Appreciate that. Anyway, so, and a conversation with a MAGA idiot about this topic, they basically were like, they don't care that Elon Musk is using the property against Cards Against Humanity's wishes, because Cards Against Humanity used the land to try and stop the border wall. So since they're attacking Trump's vanity project by buying this property, and as such trying to protect it from the evil corporate billionaires, these conservatives who were arguing with me on this post, I think a local news post or whatever shared it, they were like, well, they should lose the land because they're doing it for a reason that we don't like. Because again, hypocrisy is a conservative prerequisite, and as such, they're more than willing to go up. If this was a conservative piece of land that a liberal person was using against their will, they would pitch a fit. They'd cry foul. But because it's a liberal-owned company who's trying to, make it harder for Trump to build a darn wall, who tried to make it harder for Trump to build the damn vanity wall, they have no problem with people losing their rights to property, which we shouldn't be surprised, because they also have no problem with people losing their rights to bodily autonomy. So that's how it be. Let's see. Let's scroll way back in the chat, because I know I missed a bunch while I was reading that rule, that whatever. Let's see, I know I read that already. See, Bicycle Mike, Biden has made us money by buying oil for the reserves cheap. Yep. Mr. Spock, unfortunately, capitalism is an unstable system. Seems criminal are the only ones winning. corporate criminals in the middle class back up the rich. Like Kia. I've talked about Kia on the show before. Kia is an example of the corporate criminals that I've been dealing with. Maybe Jim Terry has long COVID, impaired cognitive thinking. Maybe. It's always possible. I mean, if you're not vaccinated, and who knows if he's vaccinated or not, but if you're not vaccinated, you're more likely to suffer the symptoms of COVID. To Brennan Woods. Oh, Jim, Texas has a lot of plants like that. There's a plant that filters Canadian oil. There's a plant that filters China oil. And that's why and then the whole lie about Keystone is, the lie is that if we only had the Keystone pipeline, we would rely on foreign oil less. No, Keystone oil would be refined in Texas, but then shipped out of Texas ports to take advantage of tax structure deals for corporations. So no, Keystone oil won't help us at all. Period. Hungry Greeters, he could be nice. Jim Terry, have a right to your opinion, but disagree with you. Yeah, NPR today talking about the spice. Oh, we already talked about that. The hard to get spices. Yes, right. Chris, idiot, killed his own base. That's why he doesn't want to vote. That's why he doesn't want votes counted, because he knows if you count votes, he won't win. He wants to prevent as many votes from being counted as possible. Which, again, remember, everybody check your voter registration to make sure that you're still registered to vote. Why do you think they needed Haitians in Ohio? They needed workers lost from COVID. A lot of the people who are Haitians in Ohio are people who, are here legally. But yet Donald Trump wants to deport them, but he doesn't know where Haitians come from, so he wants to deport them to Venezuela, because Donald Trump's an idiot. And then J.D. Vance said that Haitians come from Haiti. He's also an idiot. There you go. So he also told Woodward that he didn't think COVID was his greatest test as a president. Oh, of course not, because he would fail. I wonder, what do you remember, Chris, what he said was his greatest test? Because that would be interesting to hear. I don't remember that particular part, because I'm more focused on the COVID things than what he thinks might have been the greatest test. The greatest test was having to live in a small White House instead of Mar-a-Lago. Why didn't they play that tape during the campaign? How did they not play the tape? But Woodward is partially to blame for not putting the info tape out before his book release. I agree with you 100% on that one. Woodward should have put all that information out. Just no on Magic the Gathering. I don't play Magic anymore, but I do have other card games that I play. Dan is really attracting the right-wing troll tonight. Oh, I mean, Nick Rich, I did say that the GOP MAGA party is a death cult. So if that wasn't going to get, if my show on Monday didn't get the trolls out, this one was absolutely going to get the trolls out. Clearly, I mean, we have 134 views today, which is higher than normal. A bunch of them are probably going to be, from people who, don't like the fact that I'm calling them a death cult. Maria, who's Dude that we're referring to? Oh, Jola shared the link to Dude. If Trump loses Trump Tower, somebody Democratic needs to buy it and name it after Joe Biden and Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama. Well, I want her to buy it. What's her face? E. Jean Carroll. I want E. Jean Carroll to buy a Trump Tower for pennies on the dollar. But probably want to wait to do it till after he has to, is forced to sell it because of a personal bankruptcy, right? Or maybe just the bankruptcy of whatever corporation owns that, because we all know how billionaires abuse corporations and all that other crap to be able to, get around laws. Like normal people can't, right? If we ignore these idiots but don't block them, how much will they whine and snivel? Hey, if you ignore them and you don't block them, if you block them and you ignore them because you're blocking them and they just say what they want to say, then they'll help the algorithms, right? Maria, I was getting confused that he was quoting Dude from the one movie. Yeah, I wasn't quoting that. I wasn't quoting the Dude. I was quoting DOODE. Dude. Oh, I would love, again, Tim is Cards Against Humanity sponsor. I would love if I can get Cards Against Humanity as a sponsor. That would be great. I should email them and be like, hey, I just talked about your lawsuit on my podcast. You want to sponsor me? Aaron, you've never played Cards Against Humanity? Well, next time you come to New Orleans, we're going to play Cards Against Humanity. Notice how I'm being, like, you know, very positive over the idea that you might come to New Orleans again. But, you know, hey, it was fun when we met and we got to eat lunch with my wife. It was a nice lunch. Head Jeremy, big day tomorrow, 180-page filing. Yes, that's also a big day. Of course, the problem is that, again, as I say in the show intro, we're not going to see Donald Trump in prison before the election. But hopefully, maybe this big 180-page filing will help get some of the idiots who are not the MAGA idiots, but some of the people who are still on the fence. Maybe that might get them, oh, this is a real thing that Donald Trump did that's terrible. Jeff, when were you supposed to find out or announce who Hang Your Hate was opening for? Was that next Monday or was that this past Monday? Asking that as I'm scrolling. Maybe I'll get to it at some point. Maybe you'll already say it, but I know we were waiting to hear from who they're opening for. Like, we had a Jake from State Farm? Oh, Jake just came in and said Trump 2024. That's not terrible for him to say, but, you know, whatever. Again, mods have free reign to do what they wish when it comes to, you know, dealing with trolls, so there you go. I can always peek and see what they say. See, I know Kia, IKEA, and no Kia because I don't drive. Nice. Trump must deport radical leftists to Haiti. What? Just all the radical leftists because you disagree with somebody you think they should be deported? That's par for the course, Kevin. Par for the course to deport people you disagree with politically instead of, you know, using deportation for what it's supposed to be used for. But hey, you know, I would expect nothing less. And thank you for helping the algorithms, Kevin. Hey, if you want to, subscribe, like the channel, share it with your friends. Help the algorithms even more. Jeff Curry, has anyone tried Ben & Jerry's Boston cream pie? No, but I'm all about the cream pies. Is that something that I should have saved for Liberal Dan Radio or Liberal Dan After Dark? I'm all about cream pie ice cream. Let's see. I don't want to sound like a right-wing idiot, but Trump will never go down. Well, you know. He's not a giver, so of course Trump won't go down. This is really turning into Liberal Dan After Dark. A1 has responded to Hang Your Hate for some love, blah, blah, blah. Trump. My thing is that Trump is trying to probably sell another wave of shoes and books and everything like that because he probably needs to get a whole bunch of money so that if he does lose the election, he can flee the country before they can seize his passport. And I disagree with you, Kevin. Anyone who loves America and votes for Trump should have to have their heads checked. Because Trump doesn't support America, Trump supports Trump. Simple as that. Trump's going to sell his children. I mean, that's part of the deal with Ivanka. I mean, you know, since he can't sleep with Ivanka, he has to probably use her in some other way that's financially beneficial to him. So what did he do? He managed to marry her. She got married off to a billionaire family, right? So there you go. Surrender Monkey, he goes down. I expect he falls out of bed all the time, running asleep from reality. I don't think Trump goes down. I don't think that's an act he would enjoy doing. Sorry. We're getting dirty here. Loomer goes down. Yes, nobody gives better. Melania's going to be like, I heard you said that you got head from Laura Loomer, and Trump's like, no, we're getting ahead with Laura Loomer. That's the difference. I'm not saying head, I'm saying ahead. Two different things. Don't tell anybody that I mean both things. There are no radical leftists. I don't know if I agree with that, Benny. I think there are people who are radicals who are on the left. The people who go, because I don't believe in doing the no true Scotsman fallacy thing. Like, there are leftists who are terrible people, like the ones who march along Hamas. If you're marching along, if you self-describe yourself as a leftist and you claim to support, LGBTQA folks and body autonomy and stuff like that, but yet you're marching next to people shouting Hamas lines about, that call for the extermination of Jews in Israel, yeah, you're not a good person. That would make you an extremist and not good in my book. It's the same argument that I make with the not people who marched alongside the Nazis in Charlottesville. If you are protesting against protesting with hateful people like Nazis or Hamas sympathizers or whatever, you yourself can't be a good person. Simple as that. So, wait, Loomer is actually bragging that she went down on Trump? Is that true? Now, this is going to go in my search engine history. That's not good. Yahoo News. I think it was more accurate, Aaron, was you probably had to squish around and all that to find it. Let's not fat shame. It's funny, but let's not fat shame. I don't believe, let's not talk. I mean, there are plenty of good people who were squishy, who are deserving of love or whatever. Yeah, the only reason that MAGA conservatives support Israel is because they want the religious prophecy to come true of a bunch of Jews dying over there when the apocalypse comes. With friends like that, who needs enemies? With enemies like that, Donald Trump allies have tried to create the illusion of distance between Republican President nominee and Laura Loomer. The alt-right conspiracy theorist has continued to cozy up to him, going so far as to brag over the weekend that Trump likes and trusts her. The media is full of crap, okay? Loomer said on her podcast, Loomer Unleashed. Oh, is she in Alicia's? Huh. Kinky. Again, we don't sex shame. We don't kink shame here on Liberal Dan Radio. Talk for the left, that's right. What we do is expose hypocrisy. These people are liars, they're con artists, and all they do is lie. They're running coordinated smear campaign because I'm effective. Donald Trump likes me. Donald Trump trusts me, okay? Obviously, he trusts me if I'm on his plane and I don't work for Donald Trump. They can't imagine the fact that the President of the United States has people in his life who considers to be friends. Friends. Yeah, okay. Trump is transactional. He doesn't have friends. Loomer has taken credit for urging Trump to utter a Haitian migrant conspiracy theory that has plagued J.D. Vance. The self-described white advocate also sparked backlash from the depths of the MAGA movement, including MTG. We've talked about that before. Carol Levin insisted that Trump does not agree with all the comments, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I thought it was a squishy diaper joke? I mean, if it was a squishy diaper joke, then that's completely different. People from other countries should try making their countries like Israel, like U.S., instead of coming here. That's a very bigoted way to think there, Kevin. Do you think we should take down the Statue of Liberty? Do you think we should remove the give us your poor, you're tired, you're hungry, wretched refuse, yearning to be free? Paraphrasing, don't know if I got it exactly right, but Kevin, do you think that make America great again means making America white again? Do you believe that? Josh, I wonder if she dressed up like the Hamburglar from. Would it be the Hamburglar? Benny, we've probably said this. You probably typed it as I said it. But yes, that's why Benny Loco is awesome, because we share a brain on some things. Kevin, where do you think American people came from? Uranus? Uranus is in Missouri, as we've discussed on the show. So there are some Americans who do come from Uranus. And there are definitely other Americans who travel to Uranus to get fudge. They're not a sponsor of the show, but I will continue to make the joke like a 13-year-old boy. Because, is Hannibal Lecter Antifa? Oh, the late, great Hannibal Lecter. The late, great... Like, he's not late. I mean, the actor's still alive. I don't think he died in the movie. He had to go meet a friend for dinner. But, like... Why is Hannibal Lecter great? What is the fabric of our nation, Kevin? Please let us know. What is the fabric of our nation? I mean, cotton says, according to the commercials, cotton is the fabric of our lives. And if there's a whole... We imprisoned and enslaved a whole bunch of people and brought them over here against their will to have them pick that cotton. So if you're mad at persons with darker complexions being here, perhaps you should be mad at the people who not only owned slaves, but who formerly fought against the American people to keep those slaves. But that's maybe something you're not willing to deal with at this point. Uranus has great cookies and cream fudge. The fudge from Uranus apparently is very creamy and very tasty. I would bury my face in Uranus's fudge. Yes, Benny Loco America is made by immigrants. We are a country of immigrants, if you will. I am third generation? Is the first generation the people who immigrate here, or is that the second, or is the people who immigrate here like the zeroth? If zeroth is like a computer science type term, is the first generation if you immigrate here, or is that a first generation, or is it first generation if you're born here? Because if it's born here, then that would make me third generation on my dad's side, and who the hell knows on my mom's side, because my mom was adopted. So I think there are plenty of generations going back on my mom's biological side. So why can't they make their countries great? They don't believe in our country that's based on the Western civilization. They want to come here because they support the ideals that we have, which include the inclusion of all people, of creating a melting pot, or a gumbo, or a jambalaya, or whatever food reference you want to use. They see the promise of what America is, and despite the fact that we have a whole bunch of people in this country who are frickin' bigots, racist, xenophobic a-holes, who espouse and discuss things like, and support a president or support a candidate for president who in 2016 ran on a total and complete ban of Muslims entering the country, and other xenophobic and terrible things that he said over the course of his life. Despite all that, and despite a big portion of the country supporting such filth, the people still want to come here and make good lives for themselves here because of the promise that America has and the promise we make. Unfortunately, it's not a promise that we keep sometimes. It's a promise that we should keep more often. I was adopted too from my adopted family. I have a history book from 1876. Wow. Nice. Yeah, my mom actually met her biological dad. I didn't get to meet him. I have met some of the other people in my biological family, but they're not my people. I don't necessarily claim them, because blood isn't necessarily a tie that binds. They say blood is thicker than water, but chosen family is better than forced family. So Kevin, are you saying you support Donald Trump's idea of a total and complete ban of Muslims entering the country that Donald Trump ran on in the 2016 campaign? Is that what you're saying? Why? No, stop playing. Stop it. There you go. We're not ending yet. Gen X George, I'm French, English /IDGA. I don't give a F. Nice. Apparently, I did my DNA test, and I'm like, I am like 100% European. Like, I am, if it wasn't for the fact that half of my Europeanness, Jeff, don't get thoughts in your head of me saying Europeanness, but half of that is like European Jewish, but the other half is like England, Scotland, northwestern Europe, like maybe some France area or whatever. Good half of me is from the England area side of in the UK, all the different parts of the UK, and then the other half of me is just European Jewish. And there's actually 1% of me that's from apparently Sardinia, which is still Europe. So I'm 1% sardine, so I'm 1% fishy, but I'm like 100% European, which is probably would piss off a lot of Europeans who would be jealous of the fact that I'm actually European. So of course my joke is I took a DNA I'm so white, I'm translucent, and I took a DNA test. I found out that I'm 0% that bitch. Kevin, that's not an answer to my question. You say, do you think those countries will take us in if we had trouble? There are a lot of countries who absolutely said that they would take us in, especially because of the existential threat that Donald Trump is to this country and the world. There are marginalized people who live in this country who are absolutely terrified of a Donald Trump reign. Hell, I'm not keen on a Donald Trump reign. I would potentially be at risk, especially now that Donald Trump said that he's preemptively blaming the Jews for his upcoming loss. That puts me and my loved ones at risk. So Donald Trump is a threat to me and my family. So F him. Period. Sardinia is Italian, my bad. Chris, never met my biological family, but my kids are so white we glow in the dark. Yeah, basically, as I said, I'm translucent. There was an advertisement for that called the Toby vacuum cleaner. I couldn't believe the racism. The Chicken George KitchenAid. I think somebody made a joke with that, where somebody took a Toby vacuum cleaner and they put Kunta over the front of it. Robin M, RE23andMe, I got native. My wife was flat out surprised that she has some parts from Madagascar, and she has other parts from, I want to say, Southeast Asia. Somewhere in her DNA is that. And I'm like, what? How's that? That's crazy. Because I like much more spicy foods than she does. But look, we've never had to fear a president until Donnie stole the election with the aid of Russia. I mean, and here's the thing: we, as liberals, we didn't like where the country might go if we elected Bush, if we re-elected Bush. I remember back in '84 wondering whether or not Ronald Reagan would bring us to war with Russia, and I was very young back then, but I do remember that. There's a lot of things to be afraid of when it comes to just what conservatism wants in general, but Donald Trump brings that to the next level. And I think what Kevin is showing here, and it's important to see what Kevin is saying, it's important to cover it because it's bigotry, it's xenophobia, it's hatred. You are preaching hate, Kevin. The UK belongs to the English and Ireland belongs to Native Irish people. What the H are Muslims doing there? What's it your business where they go? Maybe they wanted some well-seasoned food. Because we all know British food is not the greatest. Like, I have somebody who married somebody in England. So she moved from America to England and now lives with her husband and her stepkids. And in England, Old El Paso had to make an ultra mild seasoning, which is more mild than the mild taco seasoning, because the mild taco seasoning was too much for many people in the United Kingdom. Then even then, the ultra mild El Paso taco seasoning made the meat too spicy for her stepkid. So basically, she had to like make the taco meat and put a little bit of salt and a little bit of cumin in it, and let that be the end of it, because they couldn't handle the seasonings because of how poorly seasoned things are. Oh, Alyosha, you're a fellow tribesperson. Mazel tov. ECE Network, I'm from South Korea. They maybe eat the cat there. Well, if you really love your wife, you'd do that. If you're a married guy, at least, or if you're dating somebody. Liberal Dan After Dark coming soon to a podcast near you, or maybe not so soon, but anyway. Did she move to London? We love hot curries up north. I think she is in London. Aaron, I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin had a hood. Kevin, did you buy your 1488 MyPillow yet? With the 234 code? Did you buy that yet there, Kevin? You're a centrist. You don't sound like a centrist. You're not making centrist type arguments at all. You're making xenophobic type arguments. In the world where you're a centrist espousing those beliefs, I mean, what does the right wing look like in that world? I don't understand what that would be. Jeff Curry, I have shelves all around the kitchen, hot sauces all. See, that's why I want to go to Jeff's house. We can have all the hot sauce. We can sample all of his hot sauces whilst making dirty jokes. No, Gen X George, the Liberal Dan After Dark show is going to be called, it's probably going to be, at least one of the shows will be called Sex with Liberal Dan. And we'll talk about issues pertaining to sex and sexual health, stuff like that. But do it on a separate channel so that you can't flag my channel for being too graphic. That's the point. But the thing is that if I'm going to do an extra show every week, I'm not going to do that show while I'm trying to grow this channel, especially during political season. I want to try and grow this channel to make the, like, maybe if this channel became so popular that it became self-sufficient, maybe I would then throw a Liberal Dan After Dark. Or at least maybe if I was making enough, I would have to be making more money than I am now on the channel to justify focusing on something other than this. Even though it is fun to make the dirty jokes every once in a while. Oh, Benny, I think at this point there are a lot of conservatives who think that Fox News is too liberal. Danimals in the bedroom. You and me, baby, ain't nothing but danimals, so let's whatever. Gen X George, I thought it's a more serious than not ideal that I have guests in mind that I want to bring on already to discuss these things. It's just the fact that if I was going to do another show, I just can't justify doing it on another channel when I want to focus on this one and building this one up. But yes, it is a in the back of my mind project that I want to work on and actually want to have come to fruition if this whole thing takes off more than it has. I mean, this whole thing is actually I'm doing much better than I was 2 years ago. Trust, clearly. Getting bits and people making it rain bits over on Twitch today. Got more new subscriptions on Twitch today. And actually, it's still September. So if you have Twitch and you want to sub to Liberal Dan Radio, it's still cheap to do it. You still have a couple of days left in September to get a cheaper sub. So if you want to support the show for get more bang for your buck, it's September. Go sub to the Twitch channel as well. See, Senator Monkey once ate a pink chicken tikka korma down in Luton. It was so wrong. I got herpes in your eye chopping Carolina Reaper chili. How do you get herpes from a Reaper? That's scary. It makes me not want to try a Reaper. Yeah, Kevin, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never heard that leaving millions of Afghanis. First of all, they're not Afghans. Afghans are rugs. Afghanis are the people. Afghanis, German village. Let's see. Germantown cast as Afghanistan in army training. That's one thing I found. I don't know what you're talking about there, Kevin. Is it something... Millions of anybody in a village. Yeah, exactly. You'll be Dr. Ruth. Yeah, Dr. Ruth Westheimer. Robin, Benny Loco, your flag and banner came today. I'll probably do a stream when I hang them. I'm guessing hang is what you meant to say. Perhaps tomorrow. That's awesome. I'd love to see that. Tim, on behalf of Russia, I'd like to thank you for your service. Yes, Kevin. I know Kevin. This is Vladimir Putin. I know Kevin. He's good people. He tried to spread Russian propaganda, and he do it all right. He needs some help. Maybe we get Tim Pool to come help him and show him how to be better Russian propagandist. But not everybody's perfect. He needs better KGB training. Do you get your GRU checks directly? They do it we pay in Bitcoin. So they think you can track it. You can track because that's what people think. But Russia and KGB, we know how to track. But we pay them in Bitcoin. We were gonna pay in Trump stock, but that's worthless now. Nobody wants Trump stock. Never trust Russia. Yes, exactly. Slava Ukraini. Kevin, what do you think about Ukraine? Do you think that we should pull out? If we pull out prematurely, we might have a mess on our hands. Alyosher, the Republicans obstructionists better not run Trump again. I mean, that assumes that Trump will survive for the next one. But maybe we animate Donald Trump, make a Trump bot, if you will. Kevin heard it from Tenet Media. No, I thought it was that. Is that what Tim Pool is on? I don't know. Roxanne, bigot much, Kevin? Yes. Russell, like, yeah, that is one of the things that people don't talk about a lot, is that the Russian oppression of Jewish people. It's probably the reason why, or it's definitely the reason, I should say, why my mother's adoptive parents, who I don't claim anymore either for reasons I've talked about on the show before. My mother's adoptive parents backed Reagan in '84. Why? Because of Russian Jewry and how Russians treated the Jews historically, and they liked the fact that Ronald Reagan took a strong stance against Russia. Remember when conservatives hated Russia? They didn't like Russia. Remember when Obama said something over a hot mic about, after the election, being able to work with Russia more, and all the conservatives pitched a fit. Now everybody loves Vladimir Putin. Everybody on the conservative side loves Vladimir Putin. They worship, look how majestic he looks on his horse shirtless. Oh, Putin's so wonderful. We should just let Putin run right over Ukraine. If Putin invaded and took half of Alaska, I think a lot of these conservatives would be like, just let him have it. There's no reason to go to war. Nobody lives there anyway. Just let him have a good chunk of Alaska. We don't care. As long as he doesn't come into the continental United States, we don't care. They can take Hawaii too. Right? I mean, I actually made that argument to Jeff Crouere on his show. I've made the argument to Jeff Crouere, what if Russia invaded Alaska? Would we be the ones pushing for World War III if we wanted to kick Russia out of Alaska, or if we wanted to take our land back. No, we would be justified in making sure that we took our land back from the invader. So why is Ukraine any different? Kevin, Afghanis are cool. You forget about 9/11. Who did 9/11? Weren't they mostly Saudis who were on those planes? Not Afghanis. Yeah, the Taliban gave, Osama bin Laden, aid and comfort after the fact. But it was a bunch of Saudis who hijacked those planes there, dude. Selective remembrance. So funny when Google completes my searches before I need them. Osama bin Laden was from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And Al-Qaeda was behind 9/11. Not Al-Qaeda, like not Albert Qaeda, but yes, the Taliban are also horrible people and terrorists. Who, and remind me, Kevin, who was the president that wanted to invite the Taliban leaders to Camp David again? Who was it that wanted to do that? In the storied place of Camp David? Who wanted to bring terrorist leaders into our country, into Camp David to have a nice little chat? Oh, that was Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the one that wanted to bring in Taliban leaders. Freaking weak-ass leader Donald Trump is. Bush let bin Laden's relatives lead. I mean, just because you're a relative of bin Laden doesn't mean you're necessarily a bad person. I mean, if they were connected, yeah, they should have stopped him from leaving. But just because you're related to the schmuck doesn't mean you support the schmuck. Right? Yeah, Trump also released 5,000 prisoners, as Gen X George points out, of the Taliban. Did he have to invite the Taliban to Camp David to have a discussion? He couldn't have a discussion, on the phone? I would like to talk to the Taliban. Was it Abdul? Did he say that Abdul was the head of Taliban? Is that what Trump said during the debate? Let me talk to Abdul. Yeah, Abdul, this is Donald, Trump. We want to deal with peace. Let's make a peace deal. All right. No, I'm going to invite you into my home, into the country. We're going to bring you into the country. For somebody who wanted a Muslim ban, he was sure willing to bring some Muslims into the country, right? Why did he make a deal with the Taliban without... he gave Afghanistan to the Taliban. Yep, he did. But again, nobody wants to talk about that. All the conservatives want to blame Biden for the pullout, when Donald Trump is the one that set the pullout date. And then he admitted that he wasn't going to even pull out at that time. Because we all know that Donald Trump doesn't like to pull out. If he would have pulled out a few more times, we wouldn't have to deal with Eric and Don Jr. Your Excellency. No, I talked to Abdul from the Taliban, and they said, "Sir, you were such a good person to talk to, and thank you for our 5,000 freedom fighters. They fight freedom, just like me. I fight freedom wherever I go. No freedom exists where Donald Trump's around. You can't have freedom with Donald Trump." Easy or Ivanka or Javanka. It will be Ivanka, because in the original, in the original Bible, you didn't have a J in the Hebrew, right? Nick Rich, it's the same troll, different account names. It might be. You never know. I think I get a feeling though that Kevin may very well be different than Guidry. You know. But that could be wrong. It's happened once or twice before. I wish I was wrong more. Who pushed Ivana? Oh, who knows? But is Ivana really in that casket, or are there more classified documents in there? That's what I want to know. Yep, Roxanne, exactly. Trump was the one who made the deal to leave. Oh, crap. Wait, it's 11:19. I have to hold on a second before I do the joke. Because we went long today because Blog Talk Radio broke. So therefore, we don't have the ability to play sound bites or whatever anymore, so we probably won't be able to play the end of the song. It looks like it's trying to play, but we're not getting the audio. So doesn't anyone burn their documents anymore? Who knows? I mean, then he would have really been mishandling the classified documents. And if you burn it, maybe there would have been something left over to see if you wouldn't burn everything completely, and then that's evidence. Whereas if you bury it, you have to exhume the casket, right? Tears in her eyes, sir. Can someone change your diaper? Nice. Doc's gold, Cleopatra's mummy, that's what's in the casket, maybe. There you go, 20 minutes past the hour. It's Token on the 20s with Nick Rich. Puff, puff, pass, bitches. Anyway. What documents? Exactly sounds like Donald Trump. What documents? I don't know what you're talking about. So, Ivana was released from an NDA around the time she died. Oof. That doesn't raise questions at all, does it? Anyway. It's 11:20. I actually don't have to wake up early in the morning tomorrow because my kid is off from schools, which means I get to sleep a little later tomorrow, which is nice, which is why I'm not worried about going to I wasn't worried about ending the show earlier today or not. And, you know, we're still cranking along there. We still have 30 viewers. We have 142 total views. Not a bad show for the day. Average view duration, almost 50 minutes. That's sweet. Kevin doesn't have the grammar skills as other trolls. I mean, we tall mate mistakes. Well played. I just drank a pot of coffee. Probably a bad idea at 12:20. Well, it depends if you work late nights or whatever. If you're trying to go to bed, you never know. Then again, part of me believes that I have undiagnosed ADHD, and one of the reasons that I believe that I have undiagnosed ADHD is because all of the people who post memes that are like, hey, this is an example of my ADHD, and I'll be like, well, I do that, and then I'll post another one. I'm like, I do that too. So there's enough people who have posted memes about what they do and what examples are their ADHD, and I'm like, oh, that's me too. I do that. Weird. So apparently, if one of the symptoms of having ADHD is that caffeine doesn't affect you, or affects you in the opposite way. Like sometimes you'll drink caffeine and it'll make you sleepier than instead of making you awake. Which sucks when you're trying to take a 5-hour energy on a drive and all of a sudden you're like, sleepy tired. It sucks. Sometimes the 5-hour energy will work, sometimes it won't, and it's bizarre. Like I've taken a 5-hour energy and then have gone to sleep. It's the weirdest thing. Surrender Monkey, can Dirty Dan After Dark be Drunk Dan with Amazon beer wish list? Look, I'd be more than happy to do. I'll do a drinking with Liberal Dan After Dark, and I'll do like, you know, but like it'll be like those, like maybe it'll be like those things where you have you know those paid eaters, like people who go online and have video streams and they'll have like a whole bunch of food in front of them and then they'll eat the food but only if you tip them. Maybe it'll be like drinking with Liberal Dan, and then I'll be like, okay, I'll, you know, if you tip or sponsor something, I'll drink what you want me to drink or something like that, and we'll try different alcohol whilst discussing all the dirty topics on the other channel. Robin M, 12:22. I have to catch up on the 20 that just happened. Aaron West, oh boy. I've done gaming while drunk. I have, like, drank an entire jar of cider, like, this big, whilst playing, like, you know, on my Nerdy Dan channel. I've done that before. So, Tim, I bought the world's worst thesaurus. I mean, it's not just terrible, it's terrible. You know, I have a joke to tell that I tell some people about paper, but I don't tell it often because it is a terrible joke. Pay me to eat this raw chicken. I forgot where I saw this. Tosh.0 probably. I don't know if I'd go that far. I think if I'm eating things, I'd want them to be things that aren't going to make me have to go run to the shitter. So, Jeff Curry. Oh, I know. If I do Liberal Dan After Dark, I know you're going to be one of the first people on board. And we'll be making all the bad jokes. I knew one channel who did this. She got like 6 bottles of whiskey off me and now isn't on. Sounds like a scam to me. I mean, you could just say like, hey, I'll Venmo Liberal Dan this, and then you use this to go buy something, and we'll drink that together or whatever. I don't know. We'll see. Again, all of this is just a, you know, theory in my head of something that I want to do, something that I think will be fun, but not something that I'm actively working on because I don't want to take away from building this. So, but once this gets built up, you know, maybe we'll make it real. Unless somebody's willing to throw a bunch of money at me to do it now, then I will fully change it. If there's somebody who wants to sponsor Liberal Dan After Dark, and the Sex with Liberal Dan show with drinking as well, if somebody wants to sponsor that and just pay me to do it, I'd be more than happy to do that. You know, fine. We'll work out a reasonable rate. You want to sponsor the studios or whatever, the Sex with Liberal Dan Studios or whatever, or the insert. Like, imagine if Cards Against Humanity sponsored Sex with Liberal Dan. It'd be like, welcome to Liberal Dan After Dark in the Cards Against Humanity Studios, or something like that. You know, if they would be willing to do that, then that would be cool. If y'all want to tweet that at Cards Against Humanity, you should tweet at Cards Against Humanity that I talked about their lawsuit on the show. I tweeted out from my Twitter account about it as well before, but I talked about the show, and maybe that they should sponsor Liberal Dan Radio Talk from the Left. That's right, because I'm an avid fan of the game, and they should sponsor the show because it's the best podcast that you're not listening to. Well, you are, but many other people aren't listening to it. So, Bicycle Mike, I will send you joints. You might get in trouble with the post office for that. We might get in trouble for the post office for that. I ate a dictionary for lunch. Now my throat is the sorest it's ever been. Funny. There was a disgusting trend of paying homeless people to do humiliating things for money, nausea and stuff. Yeah, that was pretty bad. You don't do that. That's unethical. Now, I'm not homeless, so you can pay me to do terrible stuff, right? Although, I did dump Allstate today. I completely just yeeted my policy and went ahead and got Geico. And I think I'm saving like $500 a month. If not 500, it's 450. Like, my last Allstate bill was like 700 something bucks, and my current Geico one is 270. Like, ridiculous how much money I've saved right now switching to Geico. Like, now I remember like when my wife used to have Geico, she used to be much more expensive. I don't know what went on back then, and we switched from Geico and saved 30%. But now we're back with Geico, and I'm saving like 60% or some maybe more. The amount of money I saved by switching to Geico is ridiculous. And again, not sponsored by Geico. I'm just saying I dumped Allstate because they were being stupid. At least Geico believed me on my mileage on my cars and said, hey, oh, they really work from home. Oh, they're really using these cars as recreational. I even asked the chat person, like, hey, me and my wife, we both work from home. Is it legitimate to say that all of our cars are recreational purposes? And they're like, yes, it is. I'm like, okay, good. That made it. And Geico even made me put my 15-year-old on the policy because he has his learner's permit, and it's still that much cheaper than Allstate. So at least I've dealt with that problem. Now I'm waiting to hear back from Geico from my old mother-in-law's policy to see if they'll reimburse me for me having to pay for the strut that was bent. Not holding my breath on that one, but if that happens, that would be awesome. Yay. And then we have to work on selling my mother-in-law's house. Once we get all that stuff done, I might be in a better financial situation where I won't be crying about things or whatever in my pillow at sleep. I don't actually cry in my pillow at night, but it's been rough. It's been a rough few months. Since April, it's been months, especially once we actually started having to pay the bills for my mother-in-law, including going, paying off the car note because they were threatening to repossess it if we didn't refinance it under my wife's name only when not my name, which is stupid. All that other stuff I've talked about on other shows, but anyway. Wait, JH, can you repeat that again? I didn't quite get that. One of the things that I'm looking to do, my mother, I have to go to my mother-in-law's house because she had a whole bunch of automatic piano rolls, and I have a bunch of people I need to go through the rolls and get what people have requested and put them together and give them estimates of how much I want to charge them for the rolls and for shipping and everything. So there's the piano rolls and there's also she had a sewing machine that was made in like the early 1900s. So this thing is like over 100 years old, and it looks like it's in pretty good shape. And some of the costs that I've seen that people selling this thing on eBay is like $500. It's like a Minnesota A or something like that. It's weird because we have a book, like a manual on how to use like a PFAF 130 or something, but the manual that we have for the sewing machine is not the correct manual for the sewing machine, which is weird. So I could sell that probably for like $25-30 because that's what that goes for. But I would love to be able to find a local buyer who'd be willing to buy this thing for, maybe a little cheaper than what they go for, but it's an antique. It could go for like $400 or $500. So see, you could probably find international bidders for the piano. I probably could. Probably some of them go on eBay for like $1 a pop, and some of them go on eBay for like 20 a pop. I just have to find the differences. So Gen X George, we need to get weed legal nationwide. We should. That would be nice. Chris, JH probably doesn't understand what a public health emergency. JH should be JHC, right? Going back to the old commercials that or the old topic of conversation, what the H stand for in Jesus H Christ. What do piano rolls taste like? I don't know what they taste like, but maybe if they're out of tune, you can tune a piano, so maybe they taste like tuna. I don't know. Bad joke. Mr. Spock, I have a Singer foot sewing machine. Yeah, this is a foot sewing machine as well. There's the whole, thing that you push down, up and down or whatever. It looks really good, and it's pretty ancient. And I think I found the right. I think it was made in like somewhere between 1903 and 1908, like 120 years old. Craziness. I'd love to be able to sell that for something close to what it's worth. So some people want the pandemic to be over, just not the immigration part, pretty much. How much do you think a 200-plus-year-old Bible goes for? I think it depends. Did Donald Trump sign the 200-year-old Bible? Because that probably brings the value way down. I love signing my name on Bibles because I'm such a biblical person. If you elect me, Donald Trump, it would be a disaster of biblical proportion. So that's why I'm selling the Trump Bible. Maybe that's the next liberal day in Chopper City. Although the Trump signing the Bible and the Trump Bible are a little dated at this point. But the liberal day, yeehaw, we got liberal day in Chopper City, and we're having Trump Bibles because a new Trump presidency will be a disaster of biblical proportion. We're giving away a Trump Bible with every sale of a hog, or something like that. Similar to a pizza roll, only sharper. Well, the piano roll is actually paper. Like it's all paper. It's not like metal. It's all paper. So there's nothing really sharp on it, that I can tell at least. Selling Bibles is ethically iffy. Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't actually sell Bibles because for those who are not aware, Liberal Dan Chopper City is a fictional establishment that I created during the pandemic to basically sell all of the surplus motorcycles that would be available after all the people died when they came home from Sturgis in 2020. So, yeah, I signed the Bible right next to where Jesus said he hates the gays. So he didn't sign the Bible then? We can call president a former president. That's how we call Obama, right? Well, you know, I like to call Donald Trump 34-time convicted felon Donald Trump, but, you know, that's just me. Similar to pizza rolls, only flatter. Yes. Less tomato sauce, too. Not as cheesy. Unless the song's cheesy, then maybe it's cheesy. I don't know. Get a hold of YouTube Parker's Edmondson. He has a player piano and his groovy AF. Well, I think I'll consider. My mother-in-law also has a player piano. I think it needs a little work. But yeah, I mean, they also have the player piano, so I don't know. But we probably will want to. But apparently, it's not easy to sell pianos because it's hard to pick up and deliver or whatever. But who knows? Whenever we have the estate sale or whatever, maybe we'll consider that. But you know, it is what it is. You don't like it. Do you have Camptown races? The Camptown races. The Camptown races. Name that movie. Let me look that up. Parker Edmondson YouTube. They should make a machine that transcribes modern songs into piano rolls. Yeah. Somebody should make it. That would be awesome. I think people still make piano rolls. I think there's still the companies make the piano rolls still, maybe. But even then, that would be funny. Like, you know, WAP from Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B. Put that up on a piano roll. Like, have it sound like oldie time piano music. That would be something great to ask AI to do. Like, can you make AI do can you make WAPs but sounded like it's coming from an oldie time piano player piano or whatever? Oh, that's clever, MSDNC. So, man, this Parker Edmondson has like 53.4 thousand subscribers. Wow. I'll subscribe as well. Oh, that's my Nerdy Dan channel. Oh, well. Gen X George, doodah. Sturgis guys drive drunk, but they drive Harley slow. Kids on rice burners are the ones that gets hurt, maybe. No Diggity by Blackstreet. I like the way you work it. No diggity. I got to bag it up. What, you never saw WAP until recently? Even with the Ben Shapiro controversy over him making a big deal over his questioning whether or not a vagina should be wet or not? Again, this should probably be a topic for Liberal Dan After Dark, right? Although I do hear MSNBC people calling him former President Trump, and not just Mr. Trump. Some of them might. You're under no requirement to refer to Donald Trump. You know, some people might refer to Donald Trump as that asshole. It is what it is. You have no idea why the news activists are so biased against Trump. Because you're not paying attention. Because he went to an anti-Semitism conference and he tried to blame Jews for his upcoming loss. He said Jews would be responsible for his upcoming loss. That's why people don't like Donald Trump. Get it? He's a bigot. He ran on a total complete ban of Muslims entering the country. He mishandled COVID. Hundreds of thousands of people died more than needed to because of his mishandling of COVID. He's a 34-time convicted felon. He mishandled the documents. He's an idiot because he signed a law making it a felony to mishandle classified documents and then mishandled classified documents. He's on a recording showing classified documents about possible war plans of attacking Iran to people who don't have clearance to see those documents. Because he's a freaking idiot. And you don't understand why people are biased against him. Because they know that he's a terrible person and will be a terrible president in his next term. He wants to be a dictator from day one. He wants to have political retribution on his enemies. He wants to imprison people who disagree with him politically. He said people who donate support or whatever the Harris campaign, he will go after them. Put him in prison, lock him up, whatever. There's all sorts of reasons why a reasonably minded person would be biased against Donald Trump. Especially if you're from a marginalized and oppressed culture, which I question that you are. But, you know, it is what it is, as Donald Trump says, after he was questioned about all the COVID-19 deaths. So, but anyway, it is 11:40 my time. I've been sitting here on my butt since like 7:40 prepping for the podcast, so I think it's about time for me to go. So, unfortunately, for the Twitter folks, for the Twitch folks, the show is going to end much more abruptly than it will for the people, because we don't have an outro because Block Talk Radio is broken. And, well, Twitch doesn't like the Nimbus song Evening Land. So they flag it as belonging, I guess, to YouTube. So you can only play it on YouTube. So that's why I have to end the show on Twitch pretty much immediately after I close the show. But again, if there's anything big that happens that's worthy of an extra spare show, I might come back on tomorrow night. Probably not Friday night. I think I have plans Friday night. But we'll see. We'll see what's going on. But again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, share other videos, comment on other videos, etc. Support the channel, get the algorithms up, because again, Al Gore needs more rhythm. And until the next time, Monday, 8 p.m. Central, we'll be back with more Liberal Dan Radio, more talk from the left. That's right.